Hey guys, welcome to the show. As usual, if you'd like to support this channel, there are PayPal and Patreon links in the info box below. Welcome to BALLBUSTERS, episode 86. Getting up there, man. Natural science and the scientific method. Shift it over to my partner. Maybe he's in there by now. The distinguished Nathan Oakley. How's it going today, sir?
Very well. Good to be here. How are you?
I knew you'd be there. I just shot it out in the dark. I knew you'd be there.
Yeah. Can't wait. Really excited. Hello to all of you live people in the live audience watching this live episode of Live Ballbusters. We are live.
Feels like home.
That's your cue to go. And we've got the distinguished Alwyn, or I don't know if he was here.
I didn't look in there just yet. Sorry, that's on me. Now I'm back in the game. Now everything's going. We got the Atomy. We got Brian's Lot. They're all piling in. We got Arwen, Brian's Logic. We even got Flat Earth Arthur in here. My word. Neil and the distinguished and respected, the Atomican. How's it going, gentlemen? All at once now. Rumpus each other.
Woo. I want to. I just want to state for the record, Neil was the first one in this room.
As usual.
Someone's got to put the floor down, haven't they? First.
Right. He's always laying the groundworks for us.
That's a good one.
Floor down. Got to put the floor down. Hey, I had that. I wrote something down. I heard it the other day, Nathan, you said, and I want to know what it is. Hold on a second. I wrote it down.
Got a 97 IQ.
Where was it? You said a name, and I said, wait a second. I never heard that before. What the hell is that? Where'd it go? Oh, here it is.
Usually the way around. It's usually me asking people what words mean.
I got it. Twonk.
Twonk?
Yes.
Twonk is an idiot.
Really?
Yeah, twonk.
Yeah. It was a new one. So I'm just checking up on you. It's the first time I ever heard it. So thank you. All right.
Twonk is one level above a numpty. Twonk is slightly more severe than a numpty.
Really?
In terms of stupidity. Yeah, twonk is quite severe, I would say.
The twonk
Much
clips?
higher than a plum.
It's higher than a
Oh, definitely.
plum. Yeah.
It might not be a real word. I think I got it from Red Dwarf, and they had an executive producer called, I think it was Robert Gwenlin. That was the name of this guy, and they all hated him. So what they got the script writers to do was incorporate various members of his family's name into the show as swear words. So they had, well, one of them once he left was a Gwenlin. That's what they called as an insult to the other people. So they did have a fair habit of just making up words as insults. Twonk, which is, I think I'm pretty sure it's come from Red Dwarf. They may have made it up.
You said Gwendolyn? Gwendolyn's an insult?
It's a name. It's a surname, but they turned it into an insult because they didn't like the person.
Oh, gotcha. So, Adam, Gwendolyn, how are you, sir?
I'm all good. Obviously, I knew what twonk was. I've done a quick word search. I don't think it is attributable to the boys from the dwarf. It seems to be older than that. It's got English word twonk. Probably more likely what you were saying, you know, like going twonk and where you make daft words up. And this is the point, I think. It's a derivation of the words plonker, twat, and twit. It's probably when you make one of those spoonerisms, if it originally comes out, it's probably more common than not. Plonker, twat, twit.
Do you know what plonker is?
Yeah.
I remember
Plonker,
about 8
yeah.
years old,
I ran
What's a
into
plonker?
Plonker. Hold on a second. Yeah, that was the ones I did it informally, as you know, when we first started having shows and stuff. I said, let's get a list of all these insults or British insults. So Plonker was one. Another one was dozy duffer.
No, hold on.
Okay.
You whistled straight past it.
All right.
Come on.
Plonker's got another meaning.
It's very
much
bad.
so.
It's very bad. I think I can
Prophylactic.
guess.
Oh, no. Oh, there's that one, Nathan, but there's another one, isn't there? So there's two then.
Are you not thinking of Pratt?
There is plonker that you could go and get a plonker from the hairdressers, couldn't you, for the weekend?
Plonker's a condom.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Perfect. But it's also a man who sanctions sexual relationships between his girlfriend and his male friends.
There you go.
Not a good word. You see, it's way above plum, isn't it, twonk? Way, way above.
Okay. All right. So thank you. I'm expanding my vocabulary. What about dozy duffer?
Oh,
That's not one I use.
I heard that.
So that has no. You guys don't get on with that.
Oh, but I have been watching a bit of English with Lucy, who's a YouTuber who does English, and every so often she'll drop in a few English words that are polite insults. I've been trying to learn a few polite. I can't remember any off the top of my head, but yeah, English with Lucy. So hopefully some more subtle, polite insults will be dropped into the show. And they normally come to you when you least expect it. Sometimes I'll use a word and go, I actually know the meaning of that word. And then you type in the words if you've got the right meaning. Yeah, I did mean it. It was in context. Good.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to James Mays. What's up? What's happening, James? Hello to the panel. Good day, everyone. Yes, it is. A little rainy today for the first time in 4 weeks. So thanks for the super chat, James. Appreciate it, sir.
Appropriate that we're doing science today, as we had a internal debate, so to speak, with Wits It Gets It yesterday on Flat Earth Debate. So for the people who aren't members, this isn't just a shameless plug. For those of you who aren't members, it will come out on the second channel, Nathan Oakley, on Tuesday. If you remember, it's already been released, so check it out. It's about 4 hours. No, it's not. It's 4 hours, 44 minutes, and 44 seconds long.
No
Show.
way.
Yeah, I say by chance. That's a total lie. I waited and watched the clock till it hit 44444 and then pressed stop. There we go. Anyway, yeah, we were debating about Michelson-Morley and firing lasers through vacuums, bellatrix in essence, when it comes to validity in the scientific method. It has none. There's no observed phenomena in either instance. There's no naturally occurring instance that you're going to study to see if you can figure out the cause of it. And if you don't have that, what do you have? Well, you've got a man-made contraption that has an assertion made based on a phenomena that's created by the man that made it.
I missed it. I left. I had to take care of some stuff. So when I think the last person, no, I don't think, I know, was Die Slow, he brought up the ether, and I said, that's time for me to go. And I went to, like I was telling the guys in here before the show, I stayed in, right, but I wasn't here. So I got involved in some stuff, and then that stuff turned into bigger stuff. So by the time when I sat back down, I heard Witsit, but he was roboting. Right? So I think I missed the whole thing.
By the time you got back and he was roboting, he'd rinsed and repeated his argument so much that through the, and I'm not even joking, it was, I'm going to say 3 to 5% audible when he was breaking up. And I could still make out his argument because he'd rinsed it so many times.
I'm going to have to.
So I could still just about make it out from distorted, garbled nonsense. I was like, what he's actually saying is, and I was right. I know I wasn't, misphrasing what he'd said, even though I literally couldn't hear it because he'd rinsed and repeated it that many times.
Yeah, Witsit, I love him. I really do. Maybe it was just a fate that I wasn't here.
Well, that's something that I was going to say because he lost connection. He did, to be fair, say, "Look, I'm going to lose connection at some point," and eventually he did. But he's one of the few people that will actually come. And I'm going to say this from our own side, as much as it makes me cringe. To debate about things that internally we don't agree about. Not very many others that will do that. Die Slow does, but you know, he doesn't do as good a job as Witsit. No offense, Die Slow, if you're watching. Witsit, on the other hand, does do a reasonable job. If nothing else, it shows that there's no prejudice on my show, right? Witsit got the exact same treatment that a baller would get when it comes to putting forth a spurious claim that he can't prove. He got treated no different.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to listen to it, and then I'll give my 2 cents. I pretty much know where it's going. Listen, not only Witsit, the whole ether argument is one giant argument from ignorance fallacy. Every claim that they make, it presented as a poster child argument from ignorance fallacy. Now, there'll be other fallacies down the line, but it's a textbook argument from ignorance. I'll guarantee that's what he put out. Did anyone point that out?
No, I didn't. Now you've said it. I'm myself going, of course it bloody was. Why didn't I point that out in the first place?
Yeah, that's okay. I didn't hear it, so I'm just saying, without hearing it, I already know what the game is. So
That would have been boring.
Well, he dug himself
Wouldn't
in pretty deep very quickly. He just went on a typical Ken Wheeler technobabble spiral, and very eloquent at it, I might add. But yeah, like holy shit, how many fallacies can you make? In one sentence? It's incredible.
I think if you'd have...
Props to him. In the same way as often when I give props to ballers, this is no different. If I've just, credited myself for ripping him a new one, no different. Also, props to him for coming in and actually presenting the information so it could be ripped apart. Thank you, Witsit. I do genuinely appreciate it. And a lot of it was for dramatic effect when I'm calling you an idiot.
You call? Oh, brother, this is gonna get. Yeah, I gotta listen to it. So, no more comment from me until then.
You stupid boy.
Oh no!
If we had have used the argument ignorance fallacy, it wouldn't have been as good, because I think it was important to go through the supposed meaning of the comprehension that they provide with regards to this stuff. I wanted to say chanting, because at times it does feel like it. You have to finish the verse. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But it was important to go through those details of what was being claimed where, and the implications of what something was happening and where. I'm not going to do the details myself, but I thought it was not my style, but all of the things that you covered was spot on and need covering, and respect to Witsit for addressing them. Yep, not speed up.
He did leave enough wiggle room to say, look, I don't really claim this stuff, but I think it's silly to ignore it. That was his overriding, easily way of saying, look, this isn't necessarily going to be my argument, but I understand it and I appreciate it's something we should look at.
My point,
free card in that regard is all I'm saying. Sorry to talk over you.
My only point of conjecture was the validation for the existence of ether, because we see this effect, and because the only reason I can conclude is there must be another medium for all this happening in, then that is logical and reasonable to progress from that point. And you talked about having a go at Witsit, and it's the same standards we apply to borders, but we did the same to Arwin this week, didn't we, with regards to volcanoes as well. It's not an unusual occurrence. The same standards are always required. Debate for me, if you come in there, you're going to say something, it should be validatable, and maybe that's why, respectfully, there isn't so many dielectric explanations coming up in flat Earth debate, because they aren't substantiable with any evidence.
Validation or evisceration?
Well, yeah, that's the debate, isn't it? But I think that was what was important the other day. But none of us over this side want to poo-poo this, for want of a Lord Melchett phrase. It's not about that. There's no ball in the game. If there is something valid to this, I certainly want to hear it. When I'm having inquiry, the most kind of lucid response I've heard were on Nathan's bit from Witsit. Yeah, it's the most honest response I've heard on this topic. So sadly, that did not convince me in the slightest.
I mean, it's nice that Adam's been diplomatic about this, but I think it's gone beyond that point for me. And QE got to this point 4 years ago, almost immediately after. Yeah, it just makes us look bad. And I've now warmed to the QE sentiment so much that I've been parroting it, and I did parrot that exact sentiment on the show, which is it just makes us look bad by way of the stereotyping fallacy that we have associated with us. So where we debate from is from an empirical standpoint, and we try and keep it on that as much as humanly possible. Obviously, you can't work within that the entire time, but where we do deviate, we often end up in wide-reaching, normally overarching conversations about speculation that's going on. That it's drilled down as speculation almost immediately. Nobody gets away with it. Arwin's example earlier was perfect. Thank you, Adam. Exactly. That's just a very high standard that we have. Now, some might say it's unreasonable to project that high standard onto all flat earthers. Well, I agree, except in certain circumstances, where, as it was the case on that particular show, and this is something you can watch now, which is on the live show, most of the show was, I took it personally and said it was criticised at me, but it is my show happening on my show. The criticism of how do we get more people here? How do we get more people into this pond? And when it comes to something that's to our detriment, you got to get rid of that first. If you've got a cancer in the system, you've got to cut it out before you move on. You know, you can't just carry on like it's not there. And that's what I now view it as. So yeah, I appreciate you being diplomatic about it, Adam. I don't need to learn what ether isn't anymore. I know what it isn't. I'm happy. I'm satisfied. It's been long enough.
Ether is
I'm not
the problem.
suggesting I need to learn. Just one second. I'm not suggesting I need to learn. I said I'm always open to new evidence. I wouldn't ever just poo-poo it. But there isn't anything there, and I think it's been a while now that we have. I agree with you. It has been a while now, and we've not had evidence presented. And the best spokesperson we had respectfully admitted that there was nothing to back it. I think it would be nice if we could move on and that point be recognised by the other side of our side. Because all of this is ridiculous. Because you say to move this forward, we at least leads. We don't want some bullshit flat Earth society explanations. If we're going to move forwards, and we're small enough to be able to have one at least unified message and not cloud it, so that we can get out of this pond and make a ripple in a bigger one. Because whilst we're squabbling in here, there's only the three of us now. You know, there's us flat earthers that are sticking to the scientific method and what we can define as true. We've got the other side that want to Imagineer, and like I said, I had to go at Owen about it in terms of how I view things and how I want to move forward. There is still that side there, and then there's the anti-flat earthers. And there's just us three in the pool, and we need so that we can move on to a bigger pool. Done.
What about that other numpty when I came back and then he started going off on gas pressure? Boy, that guy was a fraud times a billion, man. And then he kept going.
That's the other party, isn't it? The anti-flat earthers. Not the ones that can quite easily take a globe apart, although an anti-flat earther could. But the ones that are stuck with us, as we've been discussing on Flat Earth Debate, you know, the past week or two, they're stuck in the middle with us, aren't they? Because this topic can't hit the mainstream. It has to be marginalised, even if you're on the anti-flat Earth side. They don't want this whole rhetoric getting towards the mainstream.
Yeah, but
What beautiful words. I've been searching for that word for 2 straight weeks. Marginalised. They are marginalized, the anti-flat earthers, alongside us. I like it. Thank you, Adam. I've been reaching for that word literally for a fortnight.
Huh. How many shows are you going to get out? How many shirts are you going to get out of that show the other day on Friday?
How many what?
Shorts.
Oh, because I released another video. I'd already got it edited. It's just you can't release 4 videos on the same subject from the same person all in one weekend. So I just kept one behind, and it's just like a weekend later. Ironically, it's exactly the same subject matter, and even the title that Adam basically just used with "Stuck in the Middle with You," because that's what I named it. The video that came out today was "Stuck Here with Us," because that's how I view it. They have been anti-flat earthers marginalized with us in the same place. So "Trapped Here with Us" is my clip that demonstrates that, and the way it demonstrates it is with Coriolis effect, which does actually also span nicely into this internal discussion about ether, because when it came to Coriolis effect, a similar thing happened with flat earthers, which is to say you have this parlor trick, which is a pendulum or a gyro, that's claimed to demonstrate Earth turning beneath it as a second reference frame. And when that's a failure on the part of a flat earther, in this case Bob Nodell, if P then Q, Q therefore P statement gets rearranged, instead of it being Earth turn, it becomes ether. And when Whitsitt gets it, offered up Michelson-Morley, like, well, this is the same thing. You're just taking what was previously used by heliocentrists and just rearranging the affirm and the consequent for your own ends. But it's no more or less a fallacy when you use it than they use it. Same goes for drift. Same goes for ether.
Ether is to flat Earth as gravity is to Baltardia.
Absolutely correct. A lot of the hijacking of their claim to be proofsies are gravity proofsies. A lot of the descriptions are quite literally paralleled with Einsteinian force space. Well, what's counter space? Well, it's basically the direct equivalent.
Yeah, it's going to go down. It's going to go. Sorry, Brian, I'll let you go here in a second. It's going to go down the same way gravity goes down in Baltardia. It's not going to be pretty. I'm going to tell you that. Go ahead, Brian.
Thanks, Kiwi. Yeah, sorry for stepping on you. No, all I want to say about the whole ether thing is that it's a begging the question fallacy. As for a lot of their other claims to be correct, they have to beg the question that this ether needs to be there for light to propagate through. You know,
well, that's possible.
Have to beg that question.
Yeah, but that begging the question is downstream of the mother argument from ignorance. That's where it starts. But I got you. Yeah. I'm tracking with you.
That's what we focused on, and Brian's right. It is, and you're right, obviously, QE, because I'm kicking myself because I didn't recognise the argument from ignorance fallacy that it's all based on.
And then
Would
the fallacies.
The argument?
It's like, sorry, Brian, we're stepping all over each other. Then the fallacy. If you have a mother fallacy, then every contingent part of your argument is going to be fallacious somehow. You follow? Everyone got that?
Yeah.
You just got to find them. Go ahead, Brian.
Would you explain the argument from ignorance fallacy for everybody?
Well,
why it's an argument for ignorance fallacy?
Yeah, it's real simple. It's the proof of a proposition based on the lack of proof of the contrary. It's a train wreck, man. Yeah.
The proposition is that the medium's required, and there's a lack of proof that you can't not have one.
Yeah, exactly. You got it.
It's the difference between nothing and no thing. You'll love it, QE, when you listen back to it, I promise.
Okay.
That kind of sounds like my description of the non-local holographic nature of the Celestials. Is that the dilemma that I'm facing?
No, that's just pure speculation. That's perfectly acceptable. Only because of who you are and what you do when you say it, which is you either to piss me off, weasel it in with a disclaimer that winds me up in some way. But typically you'll disclaim that it's speculation. That's fine. Nothing wrong with speculation.
All right.
Just not on this show.
Definitely not making any scientific claims about it just yet. So
there's no show that we don't that we wouldn't tolerate speculation.
This one.
When speculation turns into, as it did with Witsit, demanding that we accept that there's an antecedent consequent relationship that is waves traversing a medium. Now, there's
What?
got to be a medium.
What way?
That's what he's saying. I did intentionally shut that down. Hopefully that won't annoy you, because it's shut down by me in a way that's subtle that you won't notice that I'm intentionally brushing past it, because I didn't want the argument to get stale, because we've had that argument so many times.
Okay.
Yeah, he did try to weasel in wave-particle duality. And yes, we could have got into that with the aspects of the argument that he was covering. It's just we've covered them before. From my point of view, when it came up, I just intentionally tried to brush past it in a way that it wasn't obvious that we weren't covering it.
You could probably
Because
brush
we have
He was
past
covered
it.
effectively scattergunning it all,
You-
right? He was like throwing the works at us,
You
like
could-
as best as he could.
You could
Yeah,
potentially.
that doesn't work with me though, Arwin. There's nothing that's going to. Might be one thing in 100 when they're scattergunning, but that absolutely did not get past me. And I knew also Die Slow tried to slip it in also. But no, and also one of our own side at some stage started defending it, and I stopped him too. So you get the idea.
Yeah,
Just
I
something that
got
we've
it.
covered so often.
You are the train man station operator.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
When
you
he's
could-
over at your place, like you're gonna just figure it out like Neo.
for the
the main-
for the 12th
Ah.
time I've been trying to get in. For the 12th time, you could potentially sidestep that argument if you focus on the mother argument from ignorance.
We didn't. Typically, we've attacked that argument head on with that aspect of it, haven't we? That has been the main focus almost every time we covered ether. It's been the wave particle duality nonsense that they think is in existence. So any other ether discussion will have that in.
Right. I'll have to listen to it. I'll go ahead and try to peel out the parts. Was there a lot of over talking?
No, it was all right.
Okay.
I mean,
It was a bit
Neil,
the day
obviously.
before, Nathan. We have I think Die Slow comes in, and is asking what comes first, energy or matter. And I did the same in terms of with regards to their viewpoint, or Ken Wheeler's viewpoint. And respectfully, I said to the lads afterwards, listen to it, and it'll be on one of your previous days after show. But if you do go through it, you don't have to take it apart. Just ask them to go through the logic of what they're saying. And I think what we got was the counter, centripetal acceleration in counter space was what the thing that first creates energy for matter to form.
Non-manifest point source energy from counter space. All
Thank
different
you.
ways of saying it isn't real and doesn't exist.
And over those 2 days, I think that's the underlying point. They're all non-real. They're no more real than
Manifest energy.
they're no more real than when the ballers are talk about ball space. Yeah, it's no more real. In fact, it's less real, because at least with that, there's some kind of mathematics to help its reification in your mind. But this requires just pure conceptualization. Maybe a big bathrobe would help, so you look like a Jedi.
And hip boots.
Yeah.
Pure feast of nonsense stuff. You see something that completely parallels a heliocentric argument and even hijacks some of its old crappy proofsies and harlotry. Don't you get wise to that? I mean, I'm talking to the audience who believe in ether. Do you not spot that and go, oh, we're just using their old magic tricks. Oh, it's exactly the same as force space. It's a medium that doesn't exist, that's got the background reality and all energy part of it. But we can't see it, it's non-manifest. Non-manifest meaning you can't show it.
Yep.
Like, why have you got words that directly say we can't show you this in a description of how you're showing it? Doesn't this stand out to you when you're reading it or hearing Ken Wheeler talk about it? Does he just talk too fast?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. They should catch it, because I've said it a number of times that ether to flat earth is more. I've said it. I don't think I said it that way before, but the summary was that ether is the flat Earth, as gravity is the Baltardia. It's direct comparison. I mean, it's
Yeah.
scary direct.
I just alluded to it there, Nathan. It's yes, minister. Yeah. If you've got a dirty secret, get it out in the title and in the first sentence. None of this is real, and then you can go into great detail about what's not real.
If Neil doesn't have something to say, I think he was trying to say something there. I'd say, I said this after one of the shows during the week, that I listened to the majority of when Ken Wheeler was on speaking with Bob and some of the rest of them on Globebusters. There were some months back. And Ken Wheeler is not a flat earther. Ken Wheeler is a globe earth believer. He may align with some of our arguments, like some of the things that came from flat earth, like the moonlight being cold, things like that. But he's not a flat earther. And a lot of the things that they come at us, or they claim to be some kind of proven thing, or a dielectric acceleration, things like that, Ken Wheeler didn't know anything about that. All Ken Wheeler said was that, yeah, we know gravity is not real, but he didn't make a claim as to a replacement for gravity. Bob and them had to actually tell him about their dielectric acceleration colloquial theory. He didn't know anything about this, and he had to correct them on several things they got wrong. Even David Weiss actually put up a photograph of a massive mine somewhere in Australia or Africa or somewhere, and he called it the Cola Super Deep borehole. And Ken Wheeler went, no, that's not the Cola Super Deep borehole. That's a mine wherever. The Cola Super Deep borehole is only a foot in diameter or something. That's not it. So it's like they kind of align themselves with Ken Wheeler, but Ken Wheeler doesn't align himself with them. Do you know what I mean? He's kind of like, okay, they're there, but Ken Wheeler is not even a flat earther. He's a globe earther. So they're
Thank God for
following
that.
heliocentric. Yeah, they're following the heliocentrists.
Not that it matters. I mean, you chew the meat and spit out the bones. And I wanted to know something about magnetism in general. I would consider Ken Wheeler an expert because he's really knowledgeable on the subject of magnetism, like exceptionally, and photography.
I mean, I'm not saying Ken Wheeler. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Ken Wheeler has zero knowledge. But I'm saying is that the Ken Wheeler we're being told about and we're being given the impression of is not the real Ken Wheeler. The real Ken Wheeler is a globe earth believer, and he does peddle heliocentric things, but he just has a different version of heliocentrism than the mainstream.
Yeah, electric universe.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he doesn't know anything. But it's just that if him is the same as the rest of anyone else, if he's going to claim that there is like an ether and things like that, he has as little knowledge or as little proof as everyone else. So that means nothing,
Right, but this whole nonsense is based on an idea that is still deeply rooted in heliocentrism. Electric universe is just heliocentric by nature.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. To see, they are trying to take a heliocentric idealism of some kind. I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, and kind of somehow put it onto a flat plane, existence. It's all wrong, regardless of what.
Yeah, the dielectric. I must have watched too much Ken Wheeler. The dielectric plane of inertia.
I don't know all the. I haven't watched a whole lot of Ken Wheeler. I've watched enough of it. But the point I'm making is they're trying to mold this electric universe, which is based around heliocentrism, mold that around a flat plane, a flat plane belief. It's like, just stick to what we can prove in reality and forget all that other, that other heliocentric stuff. Regardless of what Ken Wheeler might know about electricity or magnetism, it doesn't matter. The point is that he's still a heliocentrist and he's still working from that baseline.
But that's kind of what I was driving at earlier when I said we've got maybe our standards are too high when we impose them on people. On the other hand, I don't think so. It's like we're not being unreasonable to say don't talk nonsense because it looks bad. I don't think that's unreasonable. especially like I say, when I'm being moaned at that, how am I going to get this out to more people? How am I going to convert more people? We need a pyramid scheme. The guy who said that might have been just an off the cuff comment, but it was just the thing that stuck in my mind to summarize this aspect of what I do and what we do on the show, which is to say that people want us. Neil, you can speak to this definitely. You should be piping up right now. To expand us and how we disseminate our information out to the wider masses. And like I said earlier, with the putting out a cancer example, you can't leave that in because everything you say is for nothing if you come out with some complete batshit insane nonsense to your average Joe. You just destroy every bit of credibility you've got in a heartbeat. Now, the same goes for people who like to talk about mainstream media hoaxery. Yeah, there's certain rules and regulations that I'm well aware of in terms of what you can and can't talk about on YouTube when it comes to the current narrative magic trick. I say current because that's specific. But if you have found out something quite exciting for the sake of argument, special bit of knowledge that makes you feel a little bit better than everyone else because you know the score in terms of the lies they tell you on TV, and you also happen to be a flat earther, you start explaining to General Joe normally, who happens to have gotten a conversation about it with you, about how the sky can't be a vacuum, it's a second law of thermodynamics vacuum violation. And then you start moving on to mainstream media hoaxery. Even if you're right, all you've done is taken something that's describable within physics and empirical in some instances and turned it into your speculative take on the current media world word deception. You've thrown it all in a big pot and offered it up as a pie to some normie. And that's not a nice tasting pie. Now, how'd you sweeten the pie a bit? Well, you take out the shitty bits. That's how you sweeten it. And if your shitty bits happen to be something that's very controversial and right, it doesn't necessarily going to help when you're trying to convince them of something that's overarching and in relation to their entire worldview. When it comes to things like that, you've just got to stick to the hard, fast facts about what they've been deceived about and the hard, fast facts about how things actually function. Be it when you're building things or navigating, those things that can go after the fact and just go and research and see that you're right, rather than go forth and research some claim to be lie in the news, right or wrong by you. There's no way they can just go out and check. I take the elevation angle argument measurement for a good example of this. Measurements. And you'll know we're right in what we've told you. If that was mixed up with some crap about ether, that's the bit that'll stick in their mind. Yeah, but they're saying that there's ether. So that's the contrapositive. That's the thing I've also got to accept because most people don't appreciate that you chew the meat and spit out the bones. That's the bitter taste they're left with. And then that's how you end up with a load of anti-flat earthers because they just see us as idiots that they need to brace against because half the stuff we do say, I will have to stereotype myself with all of you numpties when you do this, is nonsense. And it does get under my skin. It's getting under my skin more and more and more, especially when I'm moaned at because we need to expand this out, apparently, to the great unwashed.
The great unwashed. That's a good one.
I know, the great unwashed.
The dirty masses.
So it's finally starting to piss you off.
Yeah, it is. Starting to piss me off because when it's just, well, what are you doing? Oh, well, that's no problem. I can rattle off in a heartbeat how wonderful my channel is and self-promote for about 5 straight minutes when someone asks me that question. But then when it's engaged with us, all of us on the panel at the same time, what are we going to do to expand this out? Well, no, that's different. Now I can talk about you and what you're doing. You bunch of numpties that are calling yourselves flat earthers. You're an embarrassment. If that's we, I've got a right to speak about what we are like, but we come across as idiots. And I'll stereotype myself, self-deprecate to do this. We are coming off as idiots when we talk about ether. We just look like dumbos, leaving nasty, salty tastes in people's mouths as we do so.
Welcome to the party. Welcome to the party, pal.
I always thought that ether left kind of a light, fuzzy taste. Not really salty, but that may be just me.
I
Isn't
love it how
that the
Alan
very
emphasises
reason?
the culinary analogy rather than the base point that I ranted about for 3 straight minutes. Thank you, Arwin.
I wanted to
Other
elaborate.
than that, I
on
totally
that.
agree.
As
on,
soon as,
okay.
as soon as
On you,
Brian, hold on, as soon as Brian wants to talk, everyone wants to chime in. It's pretty funny. It's happened like 5,
Adam
6
is
times already.
very slow and deliberate in his delivery, Quantum Eraser.
You
I'm
loved that
Pause.
line, didn't you?
I thought
Yeah,
it
it's
was
just one of
epic.
those days. Well, all I'm going to say is, isn't that why the Flat Earth Society always failed? Because they intentionally put in one piece of nonsense with 3 other things that seems to be good information, 3 good pieces of information. They'll add in one piece of nonsense, and that's all that's needed to tear that house down. And the ether is that for us, or one of the things for us. The ether is just one of those things. You know,
Right.
That's the same point, Brian. But whereas Nathan described it as sour or shitty, when you're engaging with the person, it isn't. That's the sweetest thing that their struggling mind hears. So from a cognitive dissonance point of view, you might have told them 10 things. 9 of them will really struggle with. But because you give them that one sweet tasting thing, as in sweet to keep them in the paradigm they're in, because it's talking about jabby, jibbity, bob, whatever, if it opposes something that they're in their mind, they can say, oh, this guy's a lunatic. And with cognitive dissonance, this is the point, it then devalues in their mind all of the other information that you've just given them. It allows them to cast it aside. That's why it's disappointing for me, and why you heard me on the street. You kind of need to keep it focused in the short time you've got. If you do go off and you provide these little nuggets of your own personal theology, then that's from the mind of the person that's indoctrinated. That's a sweet tasting thing that they can latch onto to allow them to ignore all the pertinent points you may well have made.
I'll get Arwin in on this. Arwin, you around? Timing gives everything. I'll make my example without Arwin's help. Okay, can we all picture our minds of Alex Jones sat at his desk shouting about something that is actually genuinely important? We all agree that plenty of Alex Jones's information has been pertinent, good quality, well-researched information. Can we all agree on that? And then we can start singing about gay frogs.
yeah.
That's why the majority of not only normies, but also a good chunk of truthers, anti-flat earthers, flat earthers, you name it, they reject Alex Jones. Now, as a result of Arwin's advice, I did have to a more careful look at what I was talking about to make this example. Not recently, but when Arwin brought it back many, many years ago. And what I found was it's exactly as we're describing now. You get 10 really good pieces of information. There's one, enough for you to reject it all, piece of information that just strikes you as bizarre. Enough for you thinking, nah, if he's ranting about that and he's just an idiot, and he's ranting and an idiot and wrong about everything else.
That's exactly. I remember this because it's pre-me flat Earth. We're at the turning point, and I'm not necessarily preaching it, but pondering it or thinking. It was at the Bilderberg conference in Watford, and Alex Jones has come over. It's a good 6-7 years ago, and he gets on UK TV. It was on I think it's Alex Neil or something. One of the the political debates on a Sunday morning, which are kind of reserved for politicians. And he does exactly the same thing. He makes really good points and then completely goes fundamentalist, like he's on his own show at the end, over talking people, shouting, and all that did was allowed
Escalating.
the
Right?
BBC to
Escalating.
focus on that final flourish, and that was the only thing that was ever heard after the life thing. So the only thing that was ever shown, and that's the same that works. If you're dealing with somebody who doesn't really want to hear you shatter their whole worldview, that's the reality of what you are saying when you imparting this information.
And just so everyone's clear, we're
Hold
not.
on, but
we're
that
not-
was a
we're not
truther
like.
thing back then, right? It's a truther thing, right? You had to take any chance. Everybody was into this. I was into this. It's like, whoa, Alex somehow managed to get on there. So then, yeah, first you do it calm, then you get resistance, and they throw it out like, oh, here's the information, quickly, quickly. Because that's how it was done back then. Times have changed now. Like, everything is more sort of spread out, and people's choices, yeah, cause them to ignore or not ignore information. Things work differently now. Back then, it was all much more like, oh, catch this. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I've kind of forgotten what I was going to say. It was your point. I was
Well-
hoping you would give some examples of Alex Jones giving out good information. So you just disappeared from your mic when I asked you to give the examples.
Right. Well, he
I was
has.
just going to say that. I
I
was just
mean,
going to
he
say that.
has shared a lot of good
That's
info.
interrupt. As soon as I've got my train of thought back. Well done.
Sorry. I'll shut up.
We're not going to be non-critical of ourselves in this regard, is what I was going to say. Now I've got my train of thought back. In the respect that internally, Huey will relate in terms of his conversations with Betty and me with lots of other people. Our information we would like to be of the highest standard, where we will internally critique to the nth degree, so it's polished like a shiny penny, right? However, aside from the actual information is the delivery of the information. Something totally different. A second ago we were talking about Alex Jones ranting, but it's going to be a topic ranted at the camera like he's on his own show when Adam described it. I can picture it. I don't have a TV. I don't watch Sunday morning political debates, so no, I don't know what you're talking about, but I can definitely picture it. And I know exactly what you're talking about. And in that instance, although he'll have a focus on a specific subject that people might not necessarily like and be ranting about it, and that be grating enough to discard all of the info and focus on that one aspect. With us, it's just delivery. Well, you're getting annoyed with the person that's winding you up and talking through you intentionally. Yeah, I am. Yeah, that's human nature. But being able to control that aspect of my, and in this case, QE's human nature, is something that we still have to work on, because even that, as subtle as it might be when it's just focused on the information, is enough for someone to reject this paradigm shifting change of their regard to the entirety of their world. So even just having the odd F-bomb in there is enough for people to say, yeah, but he swears so much. And that's, in some instances, just enough for them to reject all of the quality information. I've seen it happen. So when you talk about, just literally dropping in a swear at the wrong time could mean that the person you're trying to quote unquote convert, as that's the subject that we are talking about, is enough to stop them from being converted. Yeah, it is. How do you think it tastes when they hear about ether or whatever nonsense is being peddled? The effect is tenfold. Just leave a bitter taste in their mouth. It makes them run a mile.
Yeah, I think sometimes, and this is going to be probably putting a bit of pressure out there, but I think sometimes our standards are not high enough. I think we need to hold ourselves to even greater standards and hold everyone else to much higher standards. Because that's the problem with the world, isn't it? The standards aren't high enough. And that's why nonsense gets allowed to be called science, for instance. That's the problem. So, and me included, when I'm talking nonsense, I want to be corrected.
With this attitude,
speak for your bloody self.
I think Brian pulled above his pay grade this weekend or something. You pulled a hot chick this weekend, Brian. We're all supposed to be raising our standards, eh?
My point is that if you're always trying to raise your standards will always be as high as they can be. And if everyone around you is making sure that your standards are not slipping, and they're telling you about it if they are, then the standard is kept as high as possible. It's like you strive for perfection.
Sorry to interrupt. This reminds me of something I read on a wall in a hospital waiting room or a doctor's surgery somewhere at some point. And it was describing one of the founding principles of our health service here in the UK. I'm sure Adam will speak to this in a minute, hopefully. And one of the standards was to say that, I'm going to paraphrase this as best as I can remember it, the appearance of the health service should always be considered inadequate. I'm paraphrasing it quite badly, but the general idea was that no matter how good you make this service, it should always be considered substandard. That was the sentiment that this founding principle of the NHS. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. It's not often that things that have come from government make me feel this way, but this is one of those things that stuck in my mind. Because as a principle, you think about it and go, if everything was done perfectly, your grandfather goes in for his heart surgery, gets the transplant, he comes out, he's absolutely perfect. You need somebody somewhere to look at that and go, how can we improve this? How can we make this better? And by saying, how can we make this better? In essence, we're saying that still wasn't good enough. I really like that.
I assume that would be Nye Bevin, who is the founder of it, but I don't know the quote. But to apply it to us, it's difficult because we grow in this. Yeah, our standards change. Certainly, mine have, and I think that's probably the. If we're going to be critiquing part of our own side, that's what we're critiquing. That we've not learned our lessons. We all came from the same point. We're confused as to why you haven't learned these lessons. And as you listen to Nathan and Whitsitt, why are you peddling this? That's my confusion in terms of where the situation is right now. And I'd agree with you. And as you can hear me speaking, it needs dealing with. And if there is no acceptance, to the point that we're happy to say, don't treat these guys like the Flat Earth Society. We disassociate ourselves from their unsubstantiable claims. Yeah, we can't talk about a 0 point in counter space to the general public.
Yeah, you strive for perfection. Even though you might never make it there, you always strive for it. And that's the point. That way you and everyone around you is making sure that everyone is kept on their toes at all times. There's no slipping, there's no pre-assuming ever likely to happen. And that's because that is a problem in the world, isn't it? That's why the world is so full of nonsense. Because people's standards slip.
And yeah, because we have such a big paradigm-changing subject matter, we do have to be extra vigilant, and our standards do have to be higher. The stakes are higher in terms of what you're trying to convince someone of when you talk to them about this subject. So therefore, your standards have got to be higher also. Now, as much as it pains me to say it, Flat Earth becomes the extraordinary claim when the entire Western world is indoctrinated from birth to believing that you're on a spinning water ball flying through a sky vacuum. Now, it pains me to say it because saying that the Earth is flat is not an extraordinary claim. It is, in fact, the default position and the basis for making a heliocentric sphere Earth claim. So it's the default position and a required antecedent for a globe model. Therefore, the globe, requiring a flat Earth to develop as a model, is the extraordinary claim when you reify it into the existence beneath your feet. So, to have that statement be true, that the actual reality becomes the extraordinary claim, unfortunately for us in this time zone, this time period of the world, we have to accept that. Our standardized, normalized, real world view that you can see with your own bloody eyes is an extraordinary claim. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it weird? Yep. I don't know how it's become this way, but that's the way it is. Would, however, to put a nice sugar coating on this, would much prefer to be on the side of blatantly obvious yet oppressed truth than a glaring lie everyone believes in.
I don't want to pick on Arwen again. Again, this week was a good example of that. For within ourselves, there's Gem Panda, when he was on the street called us Nathan's disciples. Yeah, it's nonsense. The standards are the standards. Yeah, and we apply them to ourselves just as stringently. Yeah, whether we're talking about ether, volcanoes, zero points, what dielectrics, whatever. The standards should be never dropped. And we have raised the bar. So just drop those standards because we don't want to necessarily rock a boat, poke a bear. Those days are gone. I think it's a fair point, and our standards should be our standards. And if there are those that are challenging, then please come and defend your position. I think is the reality now.
Right, but look, Nathan is not unchallengeable, and none of you are, and neither am
No.
I. And that's the point, right? So we're more like a team. We're Nathan's team, and that's how it feels like to me. And I'm very happy to be one of the team.
Look, people don't hear the after shows, do we? That kind of discussion goes on all the time, and we're all in different right and wrong positions. That's the real benefit, of our friendship. I get to talk with people of different mindsets,
Right.
honestly,
team
and argue
spirit.
through points, whether I'm right or wrong with them. You're my friends.
Owen kind of twisted what you said though, Adam, into making it still seem like you're underlings, by the way he phrased it. And
No,
what Adam's now trying to respin it back into is no, we are all mates who often argue, fall out, do general normal mate things. We all happen to appear on my show because I've worked the hardest in terms of turning my YouTube channel into a successful one. No offense, Arwen. But that's just the way it's worked out, as opposed to people being my disciples, which was the original point that was put forth by Gem Panda. None of you are my disciples. If you wanted to put a hierarchy together and somebody postulated the QE was at the top of it, I would agree, and then everyone around me would get really angry. Apart from QE.
I would. I would view QE at the top of the tree.
So
I'd be okay with that. Yeah, absolutely. And I would view you up there very close too, Nathan. Like, I'm not your disciple, but I totally align with how you think most of the time. But there's some things you will say that I will challenge you on. And I'll even challenge QE or Adam. But I will, in general, I don't have to ever think that's wrong, hardly ever, when I'm listening to you speak, because you speak from honesty and you use the logic. And once that's happening, if someone's trying to use logic and be honest, it's hard to disagree with the person.
I agree.
It doesn't make you disciple. Aligning with, finding common ground with all those sorts of isn't making you a follower or disciple of me. Likewise, I'm not a disciple of Quantum Eraser. He has quite literally been my teacher. So being a mentor versus me being his disciple, these are very different things. And I know Gem Panda, who's had plenty of religious debates, knows the implication of the word disciple. That's why he used it. And that's why, I presume, Adam's focused on it. Because of the intonation he implied when he used that word, very much intentionally, right, Adam?
Exactly. It was one of the more
Right.
striking things that day that he said. And I think the reason I raise it is it's not anything other than looking at his psyche. When I was talking about cognitive dissonance, how does he deal with the things that such a disparate group from all over the plane, from all walks of life, all putting this together and reconciling it? Well, how does he deal with that? That's the only way is to classify us as disciples of some kind of cult of Oakley. Not, oh my God, we've got this person here, we've got this person here, they've got these strange different qualifications, yet they're all able to reach the same conclusion, one that I'm not prepared to consider myself. I'll have to get there. It's the only way you can reconcile that is to put us into a category that we're some kind of Moonies,
Right. It's his way of getting around the housekeeping questions. I think that was along the lines of the conversation in terms of him pointing out that we just follow these questions as disciples of Nathan Oakley. I've forgotten how I'm paraphrasing badly again. But those questions had already been addressed in terms of a claim he'd made before he got in front of them. He's talking about how the horizon behaves. In his argument, he's put forth about the Earth being a sphere with a horizon that's physical in one of his claims. And he moves forth and just demeans the questions, which have been partly answering his claim he put forth as just being just stuff that we waffle off each day. So what? And yeah, that's the way that he copes with his pain in that regard.
What I'd like from that is for years, I've listened to Jem rattle and rant and behind the mic and on a Discord. And I just want people to go and maybe watch that. And with him in real life, sat there with you in the pub sort of thing, yeah? But in real life. Now watch his argument when he's not able to mute. Now look at his body language. Yeah? There was ball earthers around me, normies are all around me. And what is this? You don't have to be like that, do you? As I said to one of them, have a look at which side of the argument that behaviour comes from. Very different in real life. It's a lot more affirming to how far we've come.
Absolutely, it was profound. Now, as much as I've seen what Gem Panda looks like, and in this instance, you're not necessarily describing his physical attributes, just his body language.
Not at all. Not at all.
No, but they're part of it. No, let me wrap it back in. I told off Arwin for this. I'm going to be careful in my phraseology here, don't worry. It all ties in to that body language, his appearance, his demeanour in general. Personified what an anti-flat earther is. He encompassed it visually.
No, I'm not talking about his scoliosis, yeah, in any way. I was talking about the contortions in his face when you're talking to somebody, not the curvature of his spine. Yeah, that's kind of irrelevant. That was pretty constant all the way through. What was twisted and evil, yeah, in my view, and what people there in real life saw was his facial expressions, the hatred, the animosity, as these things were put to. That's what exemplifies.
Yeah, and it's poison. That's coursing through his brain. That's what's coursing through his blood. That poison.
Yeah, and I just want to state about higher standards. What Neil shouted in is not high standards. That's focusing on something we don't need to focus on. Even though Neil might probably did it as a joke, we don't need to focus on someone's physical appearance. It's none of our business. Nothing to do with the argument. It's not attractive.
Yeah,
Well,
I
better
don't
than
necessarily
that.
listen to that argument again. We've already had that discussion, and you're right. But ultimately speaking, it doesn't alter the fact that what Adam's saying is absolutely right on the money. As you listen to that person, it really sums up when I say share your pain. That's what I'm talking about. It's written all over his face.
That share your pain is copyrighted.
Have you watched that clip yet, QE, by the way? Because you were waiting for it to come out.
No, I hadn't. You know, I just remembered it when you guys brought it up. I didn't get a chance to watch it yet.
It's right early it's on an FED that's got a riot band behind two people talking to Adam in the thumbnail. So it stands out.
I think
Flat Earth Debate on the Street. It's right early in the pre-show, so in other words, you don't have to do much scrubbing to get to it, and it's on camera, so it's really obvious.
I seen the from the other channel that episode, but I didn't see Nathan's, and that's going to be different, right?
Yeah, he engages with me a bit, so you get the full visit of Jem in those two bits. So there's Jason of the Isbury family, and there's the bit on Nathan's. So he's filming a bit, and what happens when I come in and start filming, then Jason disappears. So as Jason goes, the conversation will continue, and that's where we get to the claims of Oakley's disciples and malformed questions as well.
Can somebody get me the number of that? And number two, that cracks me up. I've heard this a number of times from you guys. Jason of the Bisbee family. What am I? John of the Stunya family?
Yes.
Correct. So that's a common law statement.
Correct. Nathan says correct.
Hail of the Cosentino clan.
Yeah.
Family. Your kin. That's your family name.
Yeah. So chocolate of the Saiyan family?
Yeah, but no. Catch me out. That won't happen again, you sneaky little. Right, it's
yeah,
Flat Earth
sneaky
Debate
little
16
sod.
Sneaky, yeah, 1695. It's called Live on the Street, but it's the 1695 uncut and after show.
Right. Got
I
it.
may have released on the main one. I don't think I've released it on the main channel, so you'll have to go to the second channel to see it.
I've done that before. 1695.
Yeah.
All right.
Second channel for the uncut, but it's the pre-show. It happens right at the start of the pre-show, so it's right at the beginning of the video.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
the live.
Yeah. I seen the main video, and I seen Adam come over and talk to him, and he's talking to you on the show. I could see it from a distance, right? Which is kind of creepy. But okay, yeah, I got it.
Just
Yeah,
to
add some
reiterate that
LHD.
final point there, Nath, just as what he said alongside the disciples bit was that the questions that were there were malformed. Now, that in itself is nonsense, but when I pushed him on it, they were malformed for members of the general public to be able to answer, which was strange. And then I put it to him that, but you're familiar with them, you understand the nuances, so could you answer them, Jem? That's when the stick shaking comes out, yeah? That's the reality. You see, they've got layers of defense against the truth, but when pushed to the point of total defense, all they've got then is vitriol, basically.
No, all he's got, because he's numpty dipshit, he couldn't pass like third grade basic reasoning. That guy. It's really, really bad. I would put him right at the level, right down there with Brenda. He's maybe even below Brenda. That's how bad it is. If you listen, just go to the numpty clips. He's got his own corner. He's a star, right? And just listen to some of the things he says. You're like, wait a second. Is this a grown adult? It gets to that point real quick. So I don't know what to say. I'll go check it out. It's nothing that I haven't heard before. It's just face palming. Yeah, we good.
I think so. Have we all tuckered ourselves out talking about what's going on in Flat Earth? Which is great. We've got our own little community. We've just had like an hour-long news slot on what's what in Flat Earth for us. And we're going to potentially disassociate ourselves from the Flat Earth Society equivalent ether believers. Yeah, this has been a very informative hour.
Yes, it has. I bank on that.
Disassociate, I think, is not a word I would use. Yeah, differentiate myself is probably what I would do.
Huh.
What did I say?
Disassociate.
Disassociate. Okay. Differentiate. Yeah. We're not like them.
Associate that.
Nah, I'd like disassociate.
It's not like Rufy's
It's already
calculus.
happened. It's already happened. There's already been a chasm, but probably because of me. I was the one that slammed that chisel into the rock and separated it. As much as I hate to admit it, it's all my fault. But you know, the rock was shaved in two, twine. Is that how you say it? I think my old English well enough to make this point sound.
The sword
at
was
this moment.
waiting to be pulled from the stone, Nathan.
Yes, there you go. That's much better. Once that sword was pulled from the stone, that's it. The rock's got a big crack in it. The crack's got wider and wider and wider, and now there is a distance between us and. No offense, I'm just going to have to label them because I'm be fearful of the consequences anymore. It makes no difference as far as what QE's now postulating, right? There is a chasm between us as far as I'm concerned. Not like they're talking about us. I don't get people. It was typically for about 3 or 4 straight years them telling me about how they're slagging me off, as opposed to us, which I don't feel like we did necessarily slag them off in these 3 years where we're drawing a line under it at this point. I felt we attacked their arguments. feel like we still do and probably still will going forward if it ever comes up again. The chasm's already there. So now all that's left is for us to put what was the word you said? Difference. What was the word, Adam?
Differentiate.
Differentiate ourselves from not only the Flat Earth Society but the Ether believers. Because there is a difference.
I like disassociate.
That's already happened though, hasn't it?
Yes.
So do I.
Are you-
So
are
Brian's
you
are sort of white.
Going on Globebusters or Jaronism in the near future?
Say that one more
No.
time.
Are you going on Globebusters as a guest to talk about this wonderful flat Earth information, disseminate it to their audience, or maybe Jaronism? Is that something on the horizon for you, QE? Waiting for that? Or
No.
I've just checked my
There's already-
Skype.
Let me check my schedule.
I've got nothing in Skype yet, but I'm not. The point I'm making is I'm happy to differentiate. Yeah, I don't need to attack and go out and disassociate myself from these people. I'm not wasting my energy doing that. But if it comes to it, like I did on the street, I think the day in Birmingham, yeah, I'm getting interviewed by the guys. First day that I rocked up with the banner, yeah, and I'm getting questions on this dielectric stuff and so on. And like I said, I'm happy to explain it, yeah, and I'm happy to differentiate myself from it. I don't need to attack them, and to just make sure people understand between what I'm saying and that, yeah, and that none of that. And I think the words I used was, but you understand that none of that is my claim, and I wouldn't make that claim. It's non-substantiable. And that's the only point I want to go. I've got no. You've spent ages making sure we've not had a beef with them because we don't need a personal beef. There's nothing to go there. I don't need to start going out there on a crusade to make sure that people know that dielectric nonsense is nonsense. Yeah, I'm quite happily carrying on my day, and if somebody plops up with that nonsense, we'll deal with it as you see we deal with it, and I will differentiate myself from it.
Adam, you plum. You got to disassociate.
No, because there's still people that are on this little small pissy pool that we're in. And they're much further on our side than they are on the anti-flat earthers.
Hey, shout out.
Right.
Hold on a second. Shout out to Face Reality. Thanks for the super chat. Nothing better than ball busting. You got that right. Thanks, man.
And Globusting, shout out to them. I mean, I don't want to in any way put them down because of what Adam's just said. So I was about to draw a comparison until Adam's last statement with concavers, but it doesn't work as well as what Adam's just said. But I might still make the example. We'll see. But what Adam's saying is in this pity pond that we find ourselves in, disassociated from the rest of society, they're far closer to our side of the pond than the anti-flat earthers that are also in this pond with us. From that perspective, subscribe today, go and check out Jaron. And to be fair to Jaron, he's managed to keep himself out of this. Very wise too. And as a direct result, I've had nothing but good things to say about Jaron. I often promote him and reference him in terms of what we talk about on the show. If he's the first to get there, which he often was in terms of the older examples, he's going to get credited, rightly so. Same goes for Bob. And in terms of burying the hatchet in that regard, I want that to be the case. As Adam says, they're far closer to us in this pond than my concave example that I'll now give. And that's in regards to the sort of tacit indifference that you should really hold towards that subject matter. Because on the whole, concave Earth is almost now inconsequential in terms of its percentage of fourth arguments and prevalence in terms of search results and all the rest of it. You have to go some to really look for concave Earth. You've got to be digging in the rabbit hole to find it. So, therefore, when it comes up, which it does very, very rarely, it's not like we laugh at it, but we can deal with it in such a kind of indifferent way when we link it back to the parallels that concave has with heliocentrism, and they are many. And now we're talking about the parallels in this show specifically with gravity and point source energy and down to space. We can parallel them directly with heliocentric arguments like we did with concave. But because they're not aligning with us in this little corner of the pissy pond that we find ourselves in, the people from Globebusters and the dielectric accelerant believers do align themselves in most arguments that we have here. So there's a line to be towed still, as much as the disassociation that Adam's maybe trying to steer us away from, in terms of us just making the difference that we have between us clear, and then everything else we can say, no, I would align with everything else they say. They say that, oh well, that's fine. I'm not them when it comes to dielectric acceleration, which you happen to be asking me about, and by chance, because I've argued about it, I know about it. If you did want to know about it, I can explain, like I'd explain what a concave Earth believer thinks with their reverse engineered sphere. Well, I shouldn't chuckle. I really tried not to do that. You can tackle it with an indifference. That's what I'm saying. And the same should apply to incoherent dielectric acceleration.
Well, I would say that they are a major danger to us, much more than we are giving them credit for. The evidence of this is that our number one danger, our number one weapon used outside of character, well, it is part of character assassination, used against us for so long, has been when people Google the term flat earth, they get the Flat Earth Society as the number one search. That's what they get. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if you're peddling nonsense that's on par with Flat Earth Society, where it can be shown to be debunked by the mainstream or shown to be just untrue by the mainstream, and that is all that's needed to character assassinate us. So no, I completely, although I don't hate all of the people, some of them I do hate, but I don't hate all of them, right? But I completely disassociate myself from them, because they are out in the public, and as QA has said many times in the past, they're representing me. And I'm trying to build a base of knowledge or a base of information, I should say, where I have geometric and physics proofs to what I'm saying. And I don't make claims that I can't support. And if I make claims that are just speculation, I state very clearly that they're just speculation. And what they're doing is, whether they're Flat Earth Society 2.0 or just numpties, it doesn't matter to me. They're as dangerous as far as I'm concerned. So I will, and I have completely disassociated myself from them. Even though I don't dislike all of them, I have to disassociate myself from them, because they're only getting in the way of actual physics and geometric proofs being relayed to the public in the future.
Maybe we can hear from this from the viewers in this regard, right? So below this BALLBUSTERS video on Quantum Erasures channel, if you're a viewer and you happen to be, let's say, straddling the fence, just leave a remark about how you feel about this. What are your thoughts and feelings about this particular subject matter that we're talking now? So we're about 23 minutes past the hour, so it's an hour and 23 minutes. Just put a timestamp, 1:15:23, and then it'll come up in blue so people can press on it, come to this part of the video, and after reading your thoughts about what you think about this, because we've got a very different opinion. We've got Adam being very diplomatic again in this regard, and Brian being very Irish, let's be honest. Troubles. That was a trouble.
Yeah. He's just being straightforward. I mean, I'm not personally attacking anyone. It is what it is. Either they're with me or against me. It's that simple.
Oh, it's nobody's disagreeing with you.
I'm happy for somebody to disagree with me. But before we do, just a little shout out, if we could, to the Flatsoid. Let's hear Flatsoid, because we can't hear you otherwise, bro. Campaign. It's not doing bad. Owen's got in chat. We're only £75 out. So if anybody out there that could just help Flatsoid along, whether he's going to talk about dielectrics or not, for me, I don't care. But
But I got a
know
bit
he
stroppy with him.
I won't allow that accusation. Sorry, I have to correct myself. But yeah, if we could
He's
just give it a
almost there.
shout out in the chat.
Yes, indeed. So, and shout out to Arwin. Arwin did this earlier. I was really touched. I didn't want this to happen non-organically. I me force it to happen amongst you guys. I'm a total liar. I tried to force this in Skype totally. I wanted everyone to sort of contribute a small amount, like lots of you. Now that has happened. There's been loads of people that have contributed to Fatsoid's campaign. I got my stroppy with him. So I explained to him you need a GPU to do encoding, otherwise you end up with QE's problem, which is that you can't run enough applications when you're maxing out your CPU to encode the video. He got back to me with this PC and he's like, "This is a really good PC." I looked at the specs and it had a CPU in it. Like, there's no GPU. Like, yeah, but better. And I'm like, no, it's not. It won't stream very well. I got a bit stroppy with him over Skype because of being in hospital yesterday. So my little girl's got a wonky finger and I thought she'd broken it. So I went to trim her nails. Sorry if everyone's getting bored. Normally they'd be talking about food, so sod you. I'm going to be a daddy bore. I thought she'd broken a finger. So I took her to A&E and sat there for a couple of hours until I got a text message from my wife with pictures from her from 2 or 3 years ago with her hand happening to be out flat, just happening to have a wonky finger. So I ended up coming home and just through exhaustion, I've had very little sleep. And then when I was talking to him about the campaign today on Skype, I was stroppy with him. Need a GPU. I've already told you this. I'm sorry, Black Sword, if you're out there. There's a good reason why I'm stroppy today. It's not your fault.
I always defer that to Sleeping Warrior. What did he say with regards to it? And
he's the spec master when it comes to PCs, so he knows what he's talking about. It's just a lot of what he said is rubbed off on me. When it comes to computers, everybody's an expert, aren't they? And it's like even though I was raised with computers, my folks made their money in computers. That's what I grew up with. Building with my eyes closed. I'm still going to take this computer to somebody who's an expert, a guy at a shop, and pay him to repaste it. I don't want to risk breaking it. As much as I could be one of those people that could say I'm definitely an expert in computers. I've kept up with them all the way through my life. I was born into them. I watched my dad program at 3 years old and had to explain the logic. Probably why I'm good with logic. But I don't profess to be an expert in these things. But so many people out there are, and when it comes to computers for streaming, that's something else I know. I only know through experience because I am actually using my computer to stream what you need. And when I know what you need in the bits and bobs, Anthony comes in really handy because he knows how to hone in on what's good value to do that function. Anyway, talking geek now, we've gone off the rails. You should start the presentation.
Off the rails, man.
he has obviously disagreed with it.
Dude, it turns into a culinary off the rail. At least geeky things to do with streaming from a fellow YouTuber we're promoting on their GoFundMe to get him a computer. At least this is loosely related to the subject. Food.
Loosely.
Laugh, it's never linked.
And then you start going off on tangents.
Tangents even linked. I haven't got one.
Yeah. Am I going to earn my keep? Hold on.
I was going to say, because we've done an hour and a half of just basic ball busting, because this has been subject specific and content heavy, it's been a really good hour and a half. I say you push this science show indefinitely, so delay this one till next time.
Really?
Another science one.
Really?
Why not? This has been one of the best ball busters. It doesn't have to have a presentation. I'd rather go straight to the people who are sitting around and just chat to them about what we're discussing now.
Okay.
It's up to you. It's your show. I'm only making suggestions as the co-host.
No,
Right.
no, I can change the title. That's
All right.
fine. We can push it off till next time. That's fine.
I think
I was
we've
gonna
covered.
say, unless you're really inspired, of course.
No, because it's sort of off topic. So I enjoyed the discussion so far also. So, okay. Yeah, we're going to push it off till next time.
I think that'd be good.
We'll open the. Sorry, Adam, to cut you off. We'll open this up. So instead of just going down the panel, it'd be more. It's up to you how you run the introduction of the other people in the panel. But that's what I would go to now. Hint.
Could I concur? This is Ballbusters normally like that. We're normally directing some form of information or reiterating it. This is about a current chat that's going off. It's basically being caused by us anyway. or our standpoint. You know, it's not something that we're not involved in. This is current and something we're asking people to decide on. So I should shut up a bit, but to hand it out to Discord and some super chats as well, please. What do you think, John?
You asked me a question.
Yeah, but
No,
I've got
I'm
a promotion in there as well.
Yeah. Adam segue aside, I was hinting that you should introduce the live panel that's hanging around that haven't been spoken to as yet, but I'm now being much more blunt.
You want me to introduce everyone on the panel? I will. Arwen, Brian's Logic, Elijah. I hope he's off mute. No, he's not. You are now. Be careful of your mic, sir. Flat Arthur, we haven't gotten talking to him yet. We have the distinguished Nathan Oakley, Neil Constantino, Snowburner X, the Arbiter, because definitions are arbitrary, and the Adam Meakin, who has differentiated but not disassociated.
Right. The point I was making, I might have not been clear, is to open it up to the panel, but just on this topic. So that we've heard mine and Nathan's and a bit of Arwen's and a bit of Brian's, but actually, like you say, Flat Arthur, what's his opinion? You know, just to open it up, just to hear what other people's on this one specific topic, not pull some random thing out from the panel.
I remember Flat
was
Earther, he's that
flashing-
Mexican guy.
Yeah.
That's right, Nathan. So I was flashing my mic like a few seconds ago when you opened the panel. When Nathan, you wanted to open the panel, but QA did not get the cue. Anyways, I had a few questions regarding many of the conversations that you have had in the past 1.5 hours. So first of all, I don't know why I was thinking about. I came to Ballbusters and I'm talking to QE and the gang after a long time. So I don't know why this thought came into my mind that I may end up doxing Quantum Eraser because I know his whole name from the Skype group. But then he did it himself. That was strange.
Nah, they got that a few years ago, so I'm not concerned about that anymore.
Oh, I always wondered whether it was a Stanja or a Stanya.
It's Stunya. Stunya. Get it right.
I heard it for the first time.
That's mild.
That's all right.
That's mild doxing. I've had my own full address details put out on my own live stream by people who've jumped in, presumably to porn bomb me. So that's mild, man. That's not a doxing.
I had a much
No,
better.
he did it himself.
Well, that's a stun, you all right.
So my next question is to Adam Meakin, sir. So I just wanted to ask, do you know whatever happened to that guy, John Smith Globe Live? And with him was another guy, John Thor, who used to travel on the streets of England and Britain, basically. So never heard about them. I wanted to know about that John Smith guy and John Thor, the tall guy. So right now you just told me that you were also with Jason of the Disbury family. It's been a few years since I actually watched his videos on Flat Earth, and during Corona times he has been doing other kind of protests and activism. But his videos are so long that I do not actually watch his whole videos. I saw that a few of his videos came in lately, like 2-hour, 3-hour long videos. But now that I know that you also were there, I'm definitely going to check them out along with the Witset Gets It video that Nathan will upload on Tuesday. I wish I was a member.
You aren't the only one.
To answer the question, the other John, I'm not.
Oh, sorry. A promotion.
Shall I answer the question?
Yeah, sorry, Adam.
Too funny.
Johns you mentioned, John Smith Globe Live, which is Harry, which you will see there. Him and Jason have been doing the UK tour, and if you look on their channels, you'll see them also covering Ireland
Wait a
before
second.
they came over.
Wait a second. Is that Jason of the Bisbee family? Perhaps?
Oh, the
Disbury.
It's what?
Disbury.
Bisbury. Sorry.
Let
D.
me say this because then it will be clear.
Okay.
Disbury.
Hey, Flat Arthur, hold on a second. We got to.
Everyone stop. Everyone stop.
I got it. You said Disbury. I got it now. Thanks.
BRY.
ERY. Disbury. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're good. Please continue, Adam. Or Flat Arthur.
I think it's BURY. Disbury family.
Yes, Arthur. Right.
Oh, it is.
It is, yeah, but I was joking. My joke went a bit flat. Let's
Okay.
just move on.
I got that joke, but QE didn't, so I had to explain.
All right. Please continue.
So my next question was to Nathan. Just like you said that flat earthers of ballbusters kind usually have grown that indifference towards many of the topics. So I wanted to know, what about those people who bring out Terraria and mud floods and everything, that we cannot trust any history beyond 200 years ago? Same indifference?
I'll answer the second bit first, which is to say, do I trust the history? Yes and no. It depends on how well researched. If you've done good quality primary source research and you can cite that and prove it is real, then you'd be a fool not to. But that's a completely different standard that other people don't adhere to. So the historic standard we do occasionally discuss on Ballbusters, right? I'm sure you've heard us discussing the historic standard. So that's just something you can apply personally. But when it comes to mud floods, Mandela effect, clones, what else is there? Anybody else? Can we name a few more of these sort of subjects? Feast and nonsense type stuff?
Well, don't forget
There's nothing wrong with, again, speculation.
Nessie and Bigfoot.
Go on, what was that? What was that?
Nessie and Bigfoot.
I don't really count them. They're not offshoots of flat Earth nonsense, or have been incorporated at the early stage, like Mandela.
Giant trees and Antiquitech.
Giant trees. That's what I was looking for. Thank you, whoever that was. Absolutely, giant trees.
Melted buildings.
Melted buildings. We're on a roll. Right. All of these sorts of subjects. Nothing wrong with speculating about them. I really like Rebel Without a Pause. Yeah, I love his channel. I unwind with a bit of Rebel Without a Pause. If you know Rebel Without a Pause is, good for you. Does it mean I believe a single word of speculation in regards to the other spin that people put on his documentation? No. Because people will elaborate that out into all kinds of crazy nonsense. Now, if you can validate any of that nonsense, which on occasion people have come to the show and to us, and all we've done is gone, prove it. And they can't. I mean, it is pretty basic, cut and dry stuff when it comes to these sorts of subjects. Can you prove it? No, I can't. Okay. So it's just going to make us look stupid then. That's my attitude. Hope that answers
So
the
is there
question.
any chance that Bible believers can make you believe in the flood?
There's plenty of evidence I've been shown for that.
And what do you think?
I'm reasonably open to it based on the evidence, although it's not absolutely cut and dry. I think it's very compelling. That notion, the idea that the world has been completely covered in a flood, and I would say I probably do believe that's the case. But that's not the same as people talking about mud floods, which is something completely different. We've taken that notion, and some of it is even based on the evidence that I've seen for what you're now putting in that pot, and used it to claim that buildings have been flooded when the basements need clearing out and things like that. And you're just like, no, I don't think these two incidents, if the reason even is a second one to claim it's been an incident that's been hidden, are in any way connected. But people will link them together in their speculative videos And again, I just think it's like, well, if for anybody who's got any sort of sense to research at all, it's very quickly pulled apart as being nonsensical if it isn't immediately apparent just based on the claims at face value. So again, I hope I've answered you, Flat Arthur.
Yeah, thanks.
I think,
Yeah.
Arthur,
Can I
tonight's analogy with we've been looking at things like the Michelson-Morley and things like that, which may ponder a question in the mind. It's very simple. You're from India, aren't you? So, you can look at the architecture over there, and it's very strange for it to fit the historical narrative we've been provided today. Not to say you can ascribe it to some kind of ancient superpower that exists before a complete reset, so that all of history is. This is the trouble. We, like with Michelson-Morley, we look at these anomalies, and people just fill in with beautifully detailed but still unsupported, fanciful detail. Yeah, and it's very appealing to the mind because, as they said, when you take away all beliefs from people, they'll then believe anything. And that, I think, is a little bit of what kind of happens. We see this anomaly, and that, talking about psychology before, the mind wants to fill it in. The mind doesn't like non-structure. It has to understand stuff. If somebody gives you something that's very detailed and appears real, then we can believe in Tartaria or ancient aliens. Yeah? Because we recognize the disparity from what we're being told, what we can witness, and we want that gap filling. And I think that's the same with Flat Earth and Tartaria, the lights. We've just got to be very careful, and we should be a bit more aware of these traps, I think, as Flat Earthers, definitely.
Shout out to Ned Hugger for the super chat. Thank you, sir. He says, do gases not go down, go boom boom, like bouncy balls poured in a fish tank? Thank you, sir. Uh-oh, we got adult. We got somebody spamming the chat, the adult.
I got him.
All right.
But I wanted to insert something about this flood thing, right? And my proof for the flood, the main proof that something would have to had happened like that, is the widespread existence of fossils everywhere. Because the mainstream media story about how those form, that doesn't match with practical experimentation and actual quick, rapid fossilization. So I think there would have to be an event that would have caused that many fossils to end up in that much dirt out there, including oceans and all that. So that's my reason to believe that there would have had to been some real big flood that would have turned everything around into a giant mud ball almost.
Yeah, so my follow-up question would have been, how can a Bible believer again say that something of this sort happened exactly 4,000 years ago, which is according to biblical timeline? But maybe some other time we will discuss this.
I'd just like to say, because I spoke up earlier about higher standards, is what this is a kind of a speculative conversation that is not on topic with what the point of asking the panel about was. The whole point was we wanted to hear the panel's feedback on that specific topic. Now we're talking about mud floods. Why are we talking about mud floods?
No,
This is
the
being
mud
compared.
flood. I'm
This is
sorry.
being- let me
Sorry
answer,
for
Brian.
using the word mud. It's just the flood, the big one from the biblical
No,
flood.
he's not asking about the topic. He's saying why the subject changed and it isn't. And I'm going to explain to Brian why. So when I've described indifference to concave earthers, Flat Earthers saying, well, by comparison, if you're knocking ether, what about all the people that talk about mud floods? He's drawing that by comparison.
Exactly. Thanks, Nathan. You got it.
All right.
Okay, it's wrong, but I just felt like the topic we'd gone away from that topic that we were talking about.
Wouldn't it be
Yeah,
safe
that
to
all-
say, Brian?
that-
Powerful.
Brian, wouldn't it be safe to say that as of right now, there is a global reset happening, whether it is institutions, financially, or even cosmological, it is happening all around the world where there is a distrust in institutions, a distrust in government, and a distrust with any narrative that's coming down the pipe via mainstream pop culture or even independent research. Wouldn't you agree that it is happening before our eyes, and maybe because we have this particular group has a little bit more free time than the average Joe, we're just maybe 6 months to 2 years ahead of what's coming?
Who are you
Well,
asking?
what I would, well, he asked me.
Okay.
I'll keep it brief. Well, what I would say about that is, things aren't any different than they ever were. It's just that due to the internet and social media, people have more reason to get riled up because it's in their face more than it ever was before. I think that it's no different than it ever was. There is plans in place and plans being made for the future, the same as they always have been by those who are in a position to make those plans. And what I would say is that what we have to be most careful of is not allow whatever is happening to allow us to over speculate on whatever is happening and stick to only what we absolutely know and can prove. As there's no point in me naming out, let's say, throwing out the name of some banking family and saying they're doing this or they're doing that. It doesn't matter. I stick to what we know and can prove with physics and geometry. And if we can show that to the world, all these other things won't matter. That's what I've always said, and I always will say. Because all these other things are only underneath that umbrella. So if you show the world, no, they've been wrong about where they think they live, then
Brian, wouldn't that be playing into the part of the reset as far as resetting the mind and having that division? Because if you look at what Flat Earth has done, it's divided Christianity, right, from biblical literalists to allegory or metaphor, to the point where now you have pagan flat earthers. In other words, they were atheists or agnostic prior, then discovering a creator, if you will, but then denying the story of Christ, but yet still participating in pagan rituals. So I find this an amazing psychological study, social science study, because at the end of the day, the technocrats want to rule the world, but they need a language to communicate in. And so I think they're going to take the fringe, if you will, which we would be considered fringe thinking, and use it against us at some point for technocratic control, which would be corralling said group into a corner of the web, right, and keeping them, let's say, docile or in a circle or a wheelhouse kind of thing, right? Because I don't know how you guys feel, but to me, there's no more debate. It's like almost dead air, for that there is no genuine argument or genuine a debate going on anymore where we've come. That's just observation. There's no endorphin rush, or there's no, for me anyway, there's nothing, I can't find anything else to debate. So where do you guys go from here?
Well, I don't know if Brian wants to respond to that, but I do want to just say that every part of the second part after you responded to Brian, I agree with. Every question you asked or Brian answered, I had no as an answer to every question about resets and so on and so forth after that. I don't know, we prefaced the rest of the conversation almost like we'd agreed, although you didn't lean on it, that there was a great reset, and that sort of idea I don't agree with. No, was my answer to every question you asked, just so you know. Other than that, beyond that,
they must get a reset somehow, right? This is the whole plan. Like, I mean, if you look at when Flat Earth came on the scene, it was right around the same time the World Economic Forum because it's coincidental, where there are parallels between the reinstating of the empiricism of reality versus the imaginative Einsteinian relativity of life, right? You have two paradigms: the reality we're in and the reality that we cannot not see. So if you take people out of the reality they cannot, the reality they're in, which is the reality they see, and they remove them from that reality, you put them in a state of cognitive dissonance, right? And it's no different than being a flat earther. You're just entering in the realm of a stronger cognitive dissonance, because even though you can't see the unseen world, the whole world is telling you that there's all this unseen stuff, and here's all the equations and mathematics, and here's all the formulas, and here's all the institutions built up upon all these unseen things. You're left to go, well, where do you stand in truth? If there is unseen, there must be a way to detect some unseen, because we use unseen technology. So there must be a way to detect it, right? So there's this fine line between the unseen world and the reality that we live in. But if you're telling us that nothing of the unseen world is real, but that's not true. That's not how applied sciences work at all. We're dealing with the unseen constantly, but yet we can modify it, we can quantify it, we can describe it, and we have language to communicate with it. So where does the flat earther go into that realm? Because applied science is real, but metaphysics isn't real, but yet metaphysics help derive applied sciences.
Hang on.
So
this is the problem. This is the problem. 1 second. This is the problem. I spoke earlier. I don't know if you heard it. If you heard this, I spoke earlier about having a higher standard. Higher standard for me in this situation means ignoring all the nonsense, ignoring terms like reset and other things like that, and sticking purely to what can be proven geometrically and from a physics standpoint, and showing over time as many people as possible that this is the truth. And that's the only way you're going to change anything. Because what happens is people get lost in the weeds of, I'm not attacking you personally, but in the weeds of where terms like reset brings them to. And what about this thing and the banking system and that thing? I don't care about all that. There's a there's one thing that'll solve all of it. That is to show the world geometrically and physically that it's the world that they were brought up in, that they were told they live in, is not the world that they really were brought up in.
Shout out to hold on.
Simple.
Shout out to Nidhugger again. Hey, thank you. How about we reset the anarchy? No man is born to rule over others. The common law is all we require. If we go to anarchy, it's curtains for the red lights. Thanks a lot, Nidhugger. And Sensual Goat. When the Bible literalists finally realize that Jesus is the personification of the Son, oh, you're getting into trouble now. They'll have less disdain for those who recognize that the Bible is son worship. Ooh, that's in. Thanks for the super chat.
How dare you?
I can comment on that, John.
That's his subversion.
No.
Subversion.
Albert's got really good points that I want to keep on track with. I'm really sorry that we're going to move away from, take an executive decision to move away from the super chats and not let him trigger the panel and move off track from the Albert's points. Because although fundamentally I agree with Brian, right? Brian is right. We should only focus on that, and I don't want to sound demeaning by saying, "Oh, we shouldn't look at Great Reset," because it's demeaning and unnecessary, and it would be wrong to do so. However, Brian is still right. When I've gone on at great length about the salty taste that it leaves in your mouth, when I talking about this, when I said about current up-to-date hoaxes, for example, well, let's just incorporate that as being Great Reset for the sake of your discussion, because I think a lot of what you say is actually correct, but you're expanding out us now in a very, very focused specific group that do know these things to the rest of the world and how they're waking up to it in the way you phrased it with the Great Reset and how that's changing the people and how they're realizing it. No, they're not. Absolutely no way. I agree with that. It can be seen to be that way when you're in a community, though. I just don't think it directly relates out to the rest of the Western world. And when Brian, again, I agree with him, that no, things are just, what you're seeing is history repeating. You want to talk about cycles of recession and so forth, then yeah, you can go back and just watch cycles. If you want to call that a Great Reset and recognize what that actually is when you described it so eloquently, I do actually think you're right. It doesn't change that Brian's more right in terms of how we should be just focused on what we can really prove. That's so much stronger. Even if you are right about a reset.
here's how compartmentalized it is from my observations, is that you, in the early beginnings of flat earth, you had 40 to 60-year-olds debating, okay? 40-somethings to 60-year-old somethings. The 60-year-old somethings were defending the moon landing. The 40-year-old somethings were going against the moon landing. And then eventually it evolved into flat earth, right? Fast forward 7 years later, you've got 20-something-year-olds now sort of engaging, and a few women here and there engaging in the debate. Here's the thing with the 20-somethings. They don't go on Facebook. They use Snapchat and Instagram. 40-somethings to 60-year-olds use nothing but Facebook, right? So you're not going to have a way to communicate to these 20-year-old somethings, because according to Klaus Schwab, that's his demographic. He claims that the Great Reset is going to be about the youth. And how they're going to get the youth, they're going to put them on UBI, Universal Basic Income, which basically give them an allotted money every month with a timestamp on it. In other words, you have to spend this money within a certain amount of time. This is where it's going, right? And here's what's really funny that you should all look at this, and this is about the new economic system that's coming. And ironically, I knew nothing about this XRP or XDC or XLM or any of these cryptocurrencies until I started digging into them. And now I find out the XRP is a World Economic Forum coin. But here's what's really interesting about it. All of these crypto guys that I've got into recently, they all know about the Great Reset. They all know about the new financial system. Some of them are even woke to the flat earth. But here's the thing. They're all into the Hebrew cosmology, but they're all practicing gematria, right? Which is a direct commandment against scriptures not to practice astrology. But yet you have all these crypto channels. Waters Above Crypto is one, for an example. He knows the earth's flat, Waters Above Hebrew cosmology, but yet he's practicing divinity. So you've got this young generation of people interested in crypto to some degree. Then you got these demographics of 40-year-olds, like the Gen X, and then you got the 60-year-olds. So it's not going to. Brian's wrong. You stick to this pattern, you won't. Look, we're at a standstill. Your pattern is now the same as it will always be. You're at a standstill, Brian. You're not going to reach the 20-year-olds. The 20-year-olds aren't on Facebook. They may be on YouTube. Most of them are on Instagram and Snapchat. Are you going to Snap or TikTok for that matter? Are you on TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat to reach the 20-year-olds? Because the 60-year-olds, you're not going to convince any 60-year-olds. They believe the moon landing happened. The 40-year-old Gen X, most of them won't let go of the.
There's nothing new about UBI.
Everyone stop. Yeah, Albert has made his point. Just let Brian respond, because I'm full circle now, hasn't it? This is great. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I am on YouTube, because everyone of all ages use YouTube. I'm not interested in. I hate to say this to you, Dana, but to me it seems like it's nearly fear that you're speculating about. How is this going to happen because of that thing and this thing and the other thing? I ignore all of that. I completely ignore it. I'm doing my best to gain as much truth about geometry and physics to do with the natural and physical world we live in, and I'm doing my best with everyone else here to get that out there as fact. And that's all I can do. There's no point me going on to TikTok or anything else. I'm doing the best thing that I can do. And maybe next year there won't be massive progress. But I guarantee you, the more this information gets out there, within 20 years, you'll see a different mindset to the world and what they think that the world is, the human world, or how they view the world they live in. Whatever, I am not in control of what's going on in the world. I have zero control over it. I only have control over what I do. And what I do is very focused, and it's very narrow, but that's the best thing that I can do. There's no point in me.
I want to bring this all to a head now. Thank you, Brian. That was brilliant. So to just bring this to a head, so what we're now in a position of, because right, I'm glad you didn't do your presentation now, QE. We've come full circle. So Albert is saying, how can we expand this out, just like on yesterday's FED, to the greater, great and washed, the wider expanse beyond the pond, normies, the people who might be appreciating the speculation from Arbiter side, have other things that they've encountered that have brought them to a subject that a demographic we're not reaching be reached. How can we achieve this? Right. Start of the show, Arbiter. Or we move forth out of this headquarters, if you want to call it that, right? Need to clean shop. Shop's got cancer. Things got dry rot. It's falling in on itself. It looks bad. But what, you think we should make the posters, and off we go. Yeah, man, house is collapsing. Answered, riddled. So we need to address that first. It's got to be done. Can't go forward until we clean shop. That's what this is about. So my frustration on the show yesterday was directly a member of my community. Now, I sarcastically, I don't know how well that tone came across after listening back, actually, but I was trying to disseminate my sarcasm towards it being my beloved community. I definitely, yeah, it isn't my beloved community. In many ways, I try and disassociate myself from many of the flat earthers and pride myself on how I give them as hard a time as the Globers. Why? Because in reality, I don't actually see myself as part of them for many different reasons. Well, I want to. I want it to be a really strong, thriving community that I go, man, that's another flat earther, isn't it? I recognise the sound of a flat earther out there doing me proud. I don't do that. I want to. And I'm not going to go on TikTok and encourage the rest of the community by maybe copying me, like I'm that big an influence. I'm not. But and going on to TikTok and then talking about bloody resets. No offense intended. I do, but just so you don't think I'm pouring scorn on what you've said, I'd love to expand on it on one of the after shows where it's not hyper specific, like I tried to keep the live show, which is Brian's point. On topic, on point, no deviation. Stamp it out if it comes in. But in terms of what you're trying to talk about, I really relate to. But on the same token, to make Brian's point stronger, because I agree with him in terms of what he's trying to get across more. It's hard to, because some of the things Brian's said made him seem, no offense, Brian, like a bit of an old fuddy-duddy. No, I can just stick in my ways, and I know he's not saying that, but it could come across that in response to what you were trying to get across in terms of getting it out to the greater masses, and they're really good points. I also want to promote, although I've forgotten the name of the room, Divergent Droid's room, which is there for these discussions to start taking place in the chat stream, or if somebody's around having this live conversation with him. This is the very focused, specific thing that he wants to have, not control of, but at least a part of encouraging. So people can say, look, these are an idea. You guys who want to talk me into going on TikTok, like I'm saying I haven't looked into it, I have. I want you to discuss it in that forum that Divergent Droid has set up in this Discord server. Please, someone name it, because otherwise this is going to be a shameless, wasteful plug. But discuss it in there. But that's not what I'm talking about right now, Arbiter. Your ideas about the Great Reset and how that cyclical motion does really tie into how things are actually happening. A lot of what you said I agree with, and it's worthy discussion. It just leaves that little taste of poison, like talking about COVID or talking about 9/11 or talking about anything else that isn't, absolutely empirically provable with science in some instances.
Well, here's the thing.
I just wanted to say,
we're facing I
was waiting really long.
Hold on. That Arbiter responded, then Eli after. Sorry to take over your show, by the way, QE.
So I understand what you're saying. So first of all, I just want to mention this. It's a Shemitah year. I don't know if that means anything to anybody here. Secondly, okay, so you've found a comfortable zone, right, in the avenue or the lane of YouTube. You don't want to branch out, and you stated a few reasons why it's not in your interest to do TikTok or whatever. So my question to you then is, because I'm bored. I want to get political with Flat Earth. I want it to go to the next level. This is what I want, because I'm sick and tired of these institutions pumping off fake images, pumping off fake theories, and watching innocent, naive, beautiful, wonderful people suck it up as if it's the reality. For instance, a mother of three gets a Facebook feed talking about an asteroid coming to Earth the size of a bus, and there's two coming. This woman doesn't believe in God, but she believes in science. So whether it's you believe in God and the end of the world's coming, or science is predicting the end of the world, it's the same emotional response, just two different ideologies. My question to you, are you going to stick around when it gets political? And are you going to, put your foot down, or do you feel like your services are done once it goes to the next echelon of I guess its injection into the mainstream? Are you going to stick around when it gets political?
I'd watch your show about the political implications of Flat Earth in a heartbeat. I'm already on the edge of my seat, Arbiter. So if you did that, I would be your first subscriber. But I know absolutely nothing, or almost next to nothing, about anything political. don't watch TV. I don't watch current affairs. I distance myself from it intentionally because I think it's all nonsense. It doesn't mean there aren't concepts that you've discussed here today that I can absolutely relate to and get my blood pumping and get me excited. I do, because a lot of what you're spitting I can relate to. But it doesn't mean that that's the next level, because what we do in a hyper-specific fashion, specifically on Ballbusters and Flat Earth Debate, is directly related to what we can prove about the nature of reality. It's hyper-specific. Now, that does have wider-reaching implications. Once people have come to hyper-specific information about their nature of reality only, they can expand on it however they feel fit. Now, if that's what's got your blood flowing, and I like watching that stuff, then that's something you should do. I hope you do. I hope you come on Flat Earth Debate more often and open your gob more often.
I appreciate that, Nathan. Except for
No,
I'm in a state where I need to get out and interview people and start making something more interesting.
Perfect. Go ahead, Eli.
To Brian's point, only 1,000 years. And I agree with it too. There's nothing new about UBI. It's just new to America. Nothing about new. There's nothing new about changing currencies. There's nothing new about people getting duped, people waking up, people being woke and doing, political work. What's different about it? That's about the only thing Brian said that you didn't resolve.
Breaking up quite a lot, Eli, but we get it. You want to pour the same scorn on it that Brian did, and I get it. I can understand that.
Well, no, I understand what Eli's saying. Eli's stating that it's basically the same thing as I did. There's nothing new about what I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, Dada, but there's nothing new about what you're saying. These things have been going on all the time. Just 1 second, Adam. I just want to state that it's not that I don't know about these other things. I am well informed on crypto and other topics. But the number one most important and about the world and how it's changing, in front of our eyes. But it's always been changing. But the best, as I said, the strongest argument we have is to bring proof geometrically and physically as to what is true and what is not. And that's what I'm sticking with. Go on, Adam, sorry.
20 minutes ago when this started, I chipped in with false dichotomy. And that genuinely is my point. There appears to be some kind of doomsday planning here that we can mitigate for. What should our next step be before we even achieved anything? Yeah, I think we to carry on doing what we're doing honestly. Yeah, to try and mitigate for the world at large will be a fool's mission, in my opinion. Whatever the world throws at me, I'll deal with it if that next step comes. And if, for whatever reason, we were suddenly thrust into the political arena, I'm sure we'd deal with it. I'm not going to waste my time and energy mitigating for it now. Yeah, I'm not. It's not just a dichotomy. Nathan used it, trichotomy. Keep going, because you've got no idea what the future will throw at you. So, if anything's going to cause a reset, and that in itself is the controllers at be implanting that in your own mind now. So you use that phrase. When you use it, you should recognize how controlled you are. Yeah. If anything's going to change,
this is why I wanted to expand on it. Adam's on fire. Yeah, keep going, Adam. Keep going. Expand on what you're saying.
Hold up. Let me throw some water on there. Quick super chat. Ned Hugger again. I know that name, by the way. Super chat. The source of English common law is the Holy Bible, and anarchy does not mean chaos. Lawful anarchy is a better term. Like many words, the meaning of anarchy has been subverted. Thanks a lot, Ned Hugger. Appreciate it.
Contradiction.
Go ahead, Adam.
Go ahead, Adam.
No.
Please talk about the
Well,
fear-based mind control.
There wasn't much more. But if anything is going to change the status quo, it's not anybody pulling out of their arse some grand scheme to unveil anything. Whether they think flat Earth being unveiled to the world is going to change the psyche of the. All you can do, and if you want to stick a plan on it for me, and if I was going to be nailed down, what's your best plan, Ad? What's your best plan? I said the best plan for me is to follow from the Bible what Jesus taught you, how you should be with other people, yeah, how you should react to other people. And I think if people did that, whatever powers that be, whatever their machinations were, they wouldn't overcome that. Yeah. So for me, I'll carry on plodding as I do. Don't worry about the future. Yeah. The past is the past. All I can do is live today as I think is the best way to be. And I'm doing what I think is the best way to be now. I don't need to burst into Parliament. But if I can just get my message over to a few, then that's what I think we should be doing. And I've heard this week a lot of people telling me, telling Nathan, telling other people that get off their arse and do things, what else they should be doing. Yeah? I would suggest if you want change in the world, get off your arse and do it yourself.
So that's where Brian's kind of right and wrong at the same time in one of the things he said, because he said, I can't influence the world. All I can do is focus on what I can do. Well, what you can do is influence the world, actually, Brian, with what you do. It's ironic, but your self-deprecation is perhaps the only thing that might hold you back in that recognition. And it could just be the way you worded it. But yeah, what you do directly influences the world.
Well, my point is, actually, is kind of, it's more confident than I sounded. It's that if I keep doing what I'm doing, it can't not influence the world. You know, there might be pushback for
brilliant.
some.
I suspected. Yeah, I suspected that you just phrased it badly. Yeah, that's a much better sentiment. Absolutely.
I was on the spot with that. I thought.
I think me and you are on the same page, Brian. Yeah. We've got no great plans of grandeur to change, but what we can do is change the things around us every day and do that honestly. And
may I interject, like, with some obvious things? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I guess Brian wants to round this out, but yes, definitely, please offer your
Yeah, just before the next man goes. Yeah, I'm willing to be on the internet like this and doing my best to be honest to the world concerning geometry and physics. But I'm also willing to stand up in front of thousands of people and speak. I'll do it either way. You know, so I'll do it either way. I can't say I'm going. That's not my. It's not that it's my focus to end up doing that. But if it's a consequence of this, grand. But if it's not, that's grand. I'll keep doing this. That's all I can do. Now, sorry.
Perfect. Also, props to you for your contextually correct use of the term "next man."
Thank you.
Well, I was going to ask, just because you're back around, and if this whole thing does seem to be cyclic, doesn't that mean they fail every time? And I don't know, in a weird way, kind of perhaps an obvious thing to say, but it seems to me like, and I don't mean that, like you said, disparagingly, but Data kind of like, you seem like you're just giving up in a weird way. I don't think that the generation you reach is going to be the masses. The only mind you can change is your own. I know that from unfortunate levels of experience. And I think, you know, the thing to do is kind of what Adam and Brian are saying is, I want a family. I'm trying to raise that. And that's the minds you can change, and find the other people who are like that. You know, go build the community you want to see. You know, I know it's kind of an obvious and somewhat simple thing to say, but there you go. That's what I got.
Not at all. That's the beautiful essence of a recognition of the change that Adam was trying to point out. You can make these little changes to your world around you, and they may have greater implications. That's all you've got control of. But that can have greater implications, much more wider reaching than you may see. But that's based on you and how you behave and how you interpret the world. I just want to add on that what we're discussing here is how you live out your life And we drew a contrast earlier with Jem Panda on the street with blood coursing through his veins. That's how he is living out his life. Now, when I disseminate to my audience the joy of flat Earth, that's because of, generally, as a personality, I like to find the joy in life. Now, the influence I may have in financial terms might be limited, but it's vast in terms of the time that I can dedicate to things that I love, like flat Earth. Therefore, they bring me joy, and that hopefully has a knock-on effect with the people that are interacting with me. Now, whether or not I want to voice that upon people in a political arena for a sake of argument in a proactive way, it doesn't, not something I want to do. No, I'm not going to do it. I know that might sound like, well, that's stagnating or that's selfish or whatever you want to term it as. No, I feel that the most positive thing I can do is, without sounding like a bloody hippie, is live my life in the best possible way I see fit that gives me and my family the most possible highest level of enjoyment and joy I can squeeze out of every single day. And along that path, if things that also bring me negativity, which is amongst the stuff that Flat Earth brings me, because of the negativity of the people with poison coursing through their veins, attacking me on an almost daily basis, that's the only bit that's negative. Now, I see the overriding joy that it brings me to massively outweigh that detrimental section of it, because of the wonder that I can experience when I ponder the things in my life. And that's joyous for me. And I give that to someone else? I'm afraid not. That is not a gift I can give away. And I realised that quite some time ago. I just have to be what I am. And when someone criticises me in terms of how it might affect the ongoing effort to promote Flat Earth and convert people, yeah, number one, I chuckle inside. And number two, I think I can do better in terms of my efforts as a broadcaster. And swear less, I can try and keep my temper a bit more, or lose my rag less when they try and wind me up or talk over me. I can do things to improve. Ultimately, that's improving myself, though, isn't it? Those things will keep my blood pressure lower, keep me happier, during the show. That's the only time I really experience any stress, if you want to call it that. So these are all sort of introspective things that I can focus on that will hopefully have an influence on the people around me without me necessarily going out proactively trying to infiltrate a media or infiltrate a policy or infiltrate a movement that's already in existence. When it comes to the cyclical nature of the world, I don't think it's defeatist at all to recognise that, what's her name? Shirley Bassey, she was right. All just a little bit of history repeating. And psychopaths, the people who run the world, they aren't good at coming up with new ideas. They just recycle stuff that works well. Now, it doesn't matter if the thing that works well has a negative impact later down the line. It doesn't matter if you pump an absolute crap load of money into people staying at home for a long time and then it suddenly causes inflation. That doesn't matter. If it worked before, it'll work again, and it will happen again. And you can go back through history, even if you don't believe it, and see documented evidence of history repeating. So when you realise that you have a very little direct influence on that cycle, then you can start focusing on things that you might actually benefit from. It's the what's in it for me question. When you ask yourself how you can influence others, well, how will it benefit you? Not to be just purely selfish, but because if it doesn't, it might actually be of detriment to you. That was a long waffle. I'm sorry, everyone who's been trying to get a word in.
Thank you. I think that when you think of things on the macro scale, I think we're kind of all copping out. Not all of us, because you actually have your kids home. And I think that the actual, like, we have an actual problem that we can address. The majority of people don't address. And I think regardless of what we do, if this isn't addressed, nothing else can really change. Well, change in the way that we want to see change, but things are always changing. And what I'm saying is this indoctrination system that babies go through to look, I don't know if that's why people think fallaciously or if they would just think fallaciously. Do you know what I mean? So it's like from the cartoons and the nursery rhymes that you tell your children to the one of the biggest first lies that a parent tells. All of these other fairy tales to the school that they go to. Even parents know, damn, well, excuse my language, I don't really know how to do my kids' homework. I don't know what changed, but I'm not going to be proactive and do anything about it. I'm just going to tell them to do their best so that they can make it in the world like I did as a slave. That's just how I feel. I think the grown-ups should be saving the children. I don't see, because the children are going to be the ones. Look how many young kids come in here saying the dumbest stuff. And it's because they've already been taken over. They're going to become the adults that we can't stand. So anyway,
But
I believe children are the future. I believe the children are the future.
But isn't that why, like, couldn't you say that every generation is like a small repetition of the same thing until you decide to stop it? I don't know. Does that make any sense? You're going to keep going down the same ridiculous thing until you go, well, like I ended up here through a series of interesting events, and finally it started to be able to actually think. It wasn't. I think I've said this before. I went to space camp as a kid. If I'd known just a tenth of what I know now about that, I would just look at the whole thing of it. That's ridiculous. But I think you're right, because I mean I have friends, and some of their kids they're going through school right now, and it's just the things that they're being taught to do is mentally damaging. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I think every generation is just another one of those little tiny cycles in a bigger one, and you're going to keep perpetuating that until you decide to go, hey, look, you know what? Maybe I should not put my kids, like you said, in those indoctrination camps. Maybe I should actually teach them. Sorry, I'll get off the soapboxes.
Oh, I totally agree. I homeschool, so no, I agree. 10th man also homeschooled his kids. He's very proud of what they've achieved and how well he's done in their education. And, I've recently found out that many of my family, that was unbeknownst to me when I went through the indoctrination system, albeit some of it in a private school, they were also homeschooled. I only found that out when the discussion came up, because independently, without knowing that, I decided to homeschool. We, as a family, decided to homeschool. Yeah, I'm totally behind that. So, no, you're not on your soapbox.
Why don't you get Issa's take on it?
Hey, Issa, good to see you.
Oh shit! What's happening, man? How you doing? I didn't expect to speak, but what's going on, brother?
I see you sneak in here.
Oh yeah. I saw there was something going on. I was looking around my Discord hangouts, and you guys were looking like you were popping. I was like, let me see what's going on in here then.
We're popping.
Oh yeah,
we're snappy. You picking it up?
Oh yeah, man. I'm glad I caught the drift, man.
I don't know if anyone else is glad.
Oh, that's all right. So it wouldn't be the first time, Quantum. Wouldn't be the first time. Good to catch up with you guys, though. I love that you guys are still rocking and rolling. What up, Nathan, man? I'm your ultimate fan. Don't forget it, man.
You say that. Issa's OG Flat Earth, right? It's been here longer than I have. So the reason he's getting lit from QE is because essentially you're OG Flat Earth.
Hell yeah, man. Dude, you guys are holding it down. Like, I mean, I remember when, our good friend Cathexis, man, fucking as far as I know, introduced me to QE. You know what I mean? And brought all the, and what's cool is he was like, yo, this dude is fire. And you know what I mean? He was just like, this dude's all piss and vinegar, just so cool. Like, make sure you check him out. And he was, I think you guys did those talks and stuff, you know what I mean? Got stuff going. It was so cool, actually.
The worst part of this, right? As much as this sounds great, what Issa's talking about is the reason I didn't take in 90% of the information when QE first appeared on the scene and went on Cathexis' channel to disseminate the information he now disseminates on his own was because Issa would be in the chat with me talking about stuff that wasn't related to the show, just chatting, not taking it in. I blame not understanding a lot of the stuff on being in the chat, and you being in here talking about Cathexis reminds me of you being one of the people in the chat, for me to not be paying proper attention. So yeah, that sounds great in theory, but yeah, there's more to that, isn't there, eh?
Well, I'm glad. I mean, shoot, you know what's funny is like almost not really though. You know what I mean? There's like this like cloud of like certain things, and it's so funny, man. We used to have so much fun, and it was so crazy back then. Like I really felt like
I just remember, it makes me feel like a naughty kid because reminiscing about this because this is what 6 years ago.
yo, man,
Longer.
remember like this was like Google Hangouts before anyone before like Zoom meetings. Like imagine like we were like I always like I said even I was like, dude, we were the fucking guinea pigs of Google in this fucking digital tech of like communications. You know what I mean? Like, and then they ran with it during the fucking whole pandemic. I was like smacking my head like we you'd see people like, have you ever seen the court hearing where the guy's got an emoji where he's a cat and he doesn't know how to take it off, and it's like that kind of thing where like that's the kind of thing where so many people then have to like realize the interface with the technology, and you've got like all kinds of walks of life walking into this technology that we were fucking with, years before it was like the beta. You know what I mean? Like, remember, like nobody knew about the backroom chats of Google Hangouts, and like it was so confusing.
Yeah, when I found out I had to keep it,
it was so
secret that I knew.
and
I had
was
to
so
keep it
cool.
secret that I knew that was how they were doing it, how they were sniping the show. So I couldn't tell them that I
Yep.
knew.
Well, so.
But,
Man, even like the whole idea, like I always thought it funny because like
it's not you, Issa. This is what I was just going to make a point about us being naughty school kids, right? This is the
No
kind
doubt.
of thing that would happen in the chat. While QE, I'm just trying to bring it back
wrecked
to
the ball,
Oh, just one second, Issa. Just one sec. So Brian's saying we should stay on topic. Now, what Issa and I are now discussing is kind of on topic, but really we're just kind of chit chatting. But really, I'm saying that this kind of discussion would be the kind of thing, coherent though it is, that would happen in Cathexis's chat. While all QE's trying to disseminate to the audience, because it's far more important than, no offense, what we're talking about now, Issa, about the hangouts and the back rooms.
Yep.
He's trying to disseminate on that show that we're having these kind of conversations. The information that Brian wants us to focus on in this regard, to actually, super focus discussion, to make people appreciate the nuances and focal points of the discussion, which is flat Earth versus globe Earth, and how it's proven. But we didn't take in that information because we were talking about stuff like this in the chat while QE was on Cathexis's show.
Well, you know what I find so intriguing is like, I mean, for me personally, and I guess even back then, the penny was dropping as like real time. Was like I feel like as though like as when the penny drops, it's like you recognize that, in my opinion, you can't really change somebody's mind about these issues. And to a certain extent, lest one forget, like flat Earth is like one of the only subjects that can destroy good, two good friends looking at a beautiful sunrise. You know what I mean? Like, and I just think we can get wound up in these details and these things. And like, and I think once the penny drops, like, I think there's like a letting go process of
Exactly.
like, of
You
this
and
heated
I,
debate,
during that time
etc.
period, the penny was dropping for us. Obviously, you and I had
Real
home
time,
devices.
man, for real
Yeah,
time. Yep.
exactly, in real time. That's the penny dropping for you and I in that time period. And it's down to you and I, as we're discussing it and debating the various different aspects of flat Earth, starting to understand the reality of our world and the real details, the bits that matter, were out in front of our very eyes on, coming from QE's mouth as we're having the penny just dropping. It's not, I haven't actually figured it out yet. Neither of us had, right? We're just on that journey. Now, by comparison, us now 7 years along the line, not paying it forward, we're just disseminating that same information that QE was disseminating back then when we were the naughty school kids in the hierarchy, looking around in the classroom.
And using the the phrases of cathexis. We call them echoes of cathexis, some of the the
All
angle
I
of
did in that
incidents and
chat
shit like that.
was not wrong, David. Do you remember? All we did was use Snack to the Future lines about Dick Earth.
Oh, dude, remember when he was Miss Piggy? He'd be like, aha, and he'd ban one. Dan people.
The naughty kids at the back of the class throwing little moustaches on the sperms and just kicking each other and turning the gas burners on and just mucking around.
Yeah, no doubt.
That to me, there's a lot of the audience that are like that when they ask us about frivolous things that are completely unrelated and try and connect them, or I just see them, I relate and empathize and go, I was there 7 years ago or 6 years ago while QE is trying to put in a serious tone, like the teacher, actually educate us. And all we're doing is mucking around at the back. We're still flat earthers. We're all there for the cause. The penny's dropping, but it ain't dropped yet.
Well, I felt like back then, even it's more than ever, and I think I'm so thankful that like almost society has just gotten over these people that we've seen. You know what I mean? That were popping up as just so stupid and cruel, and like I think like people have gotten over that. So it's like, but at the time, it's kind of like I always felt like there had to be a soft landing for people that were, just having the penny drop. You know what I mean? Like a soft
I
landing.
agree, man.
Someplace where you could just rap about everything instead of go like diehard mechanics about fucking, molecular biology in the ether.
I agree.
That was my
What
take, but I always
what you're saying about people being over it, I agree. Because
That's where I can only
the
recommend
people
Mark
who
Sargent,
aren't
people
over
like
it,
that. Off landing,
can
Mark Sargent.
I play, guys, with y'all? Can I play?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Eli. My bad.
Because I love this kind of talk, and it's like I know I'm the. Anyway, yeah, like I see what you're saying about people because the more people I talk to, and when I look at all of these sections, they can't control everything, and it's like you see what feels contrived. Obviously, is speculation, but it's like there are these voices that sound exactly the same people that ask the same questions that are on Google, how to debate flat earther kinds of questions. There's like a small number of them that are still out there, but there's a very large growing amount of people who will comment on, in Reddits and everywhere else that are saying, you know what, this doesn't sound that crazy. Like, I don't see why y'all are tripping. Like, they're having a reaction to, because they don't understand why they're so venomous.
Bro, I have to say,
well, yeah, I think, and it's a credit.
out.
Real quick, it's a credit to Nathan and a credit to Quantum though. It's like, they've like in some sense, like this taboo subject, you know what I mean, has been like normalized no matter how mad these people get. And like, I just think that that's really cool. And it kind of, like, I look forward if I can catch it, the show, you know what I mean? You're more in the, a few debates. It's like when you guys are in here, I love that I can come in here or even the debate show.
Thank you, but I definitely don't credit myself, and I
Well, you
wouldn't
don't have to,
really
and you shouldn't, dude, and you shouldn't toot your horn, and that's what makes you even more honorable, dude. Like, for me anyway, because like as someone who like, I like it when you're hemming, I like it when you hem people up eloquently and beautifully. You know what I mean? Like, that's part of the game that I actually really enjoy. But and I think that's good for people to see. Because, like I said, they need somewhat of a soft landing. But in order to have a soft place to land, you need somebody who's protecting that soft base, you know what I mean? And like, there's you guys managed to do that, that's what I think is cool.
It's just a funny word. I don't see the FED flat earth debate as a soft landing, man.
No, it's not. No. What I mean, no. The arena's not soft. No. I'm not talking about the arena of flat earth debate. What I'm saying is someone who's observing from the outside, who maybe holds these ideas, but doesn't, isn't so vocal about them like some of us might be, some of us extroverts, right? But like the idea that person, to hear somebody, it's like when you see like in a movie when the bad guy gets his comeuppance and everyone's like, yeah, like, well, the guy had to go into it, you know what I mean? Like, something bad maybe had to happen. And that guy had to, it's like in order to, no one wants to be a beast unless it's, when it's time to do beastly things. You know what I mean? Like no one wants to be a savage when it's fucking time to do savage things.
Talking.
And like,
Okay,
you know what I mean? So like, and like, in defending that space, those ideas, it creates space for people to gather so that they're not dealing with it because you've handled them at the gate, which is cool intellectually, because there's like an intellectual arena of like I've often thought, and that's why I had Flat Earth Court. The audience is the judge. I'm not the judge, even though I'm the arbiter in between two people or whoever it is. You're not the judge. The fucking audience listening is. So you're not. And remember this too. Their tactic is to make like our tactic is to try to change one person's mind at a time, one debate at a time, right? Well, their fucking tactic is to make sure that you only change one person at a time. So when you get done, you're like, aha, I won. And they're like, no, aha, I won. You know what I mean?
Hey, thanks, Issa. My show was this Ballbuster show was
Forgive
monetized
me,
was monetized before you came in. Thanks for the
Ah, well,
F-bomb.
forgive me, dude. Just forgive us some history. Just forgive being me, dude. You know, working on yourself.
Yeah, I was trying to get something in as well. So
Love you, Colin.
Owen, did you want to get something in? Owen.
I did. It's probably me binging. I just wondered if Issa had any regrets about writing a song for Ranty.
Never. Nope. Actually, I was honored to be asked, and I'm pissed I actually put it out there before you guys wanted it out there at the time. So forgive me for that. But no, I like that tune actually.
No. I was just reminiscing on the days, mate, in terms
Oh
of
man,
how...
well, dude, you got to remember, I remember when Ranty and Riley came in. I remember I was hanging out and I let Mark Taylor and fucking what's his name rip into him one night. You know what I mean? Because he was talking about Ken Burns and shit. Like, you know what I mean? We were trying for Ranty, but you know, it's only made sense. Man. It only makes sense in the end. You know?
Yeah, it's a bit unfair, Adam. I mean, I raised money for Ranty and absolutely no regrets whatsoever in that regard. In the same token, and it's not a shameless plug, if Flatzoid turned around and, turned into a Glober in a year's time, it wouldn't mean that I would in any way regret promoting him. Because as far as I can ascertain, he stands for things I stand for. Therefore, it's worth promoting. Well, when Ranty was the same, there was no difference. There was a change. He changed.
It was a lie. I sit there the same. I did all his OBS, all of the title intros. Yeah, I spent many hours helping Ranty develop his. Yeah, well, but this is a good point. How do you view that?
Hold on 1 second, Adam. Can you just cue up the violin music? Go ahead, Adam.
The point being is actually.
Stop.
I don't have any violin music.
A point I didn't know when I was making it flippantly is what I was going to say. I was just being sarcastic. Just because Issa stuff, he mentioned it like Earth Court. It's just like I remember sitting in my garden on holiday. You know what I mean? Just listening to a bit of Court, bit of tunes, bit of this, bit of the other. But there are regrets.
Really?
Oh yeah. Do I think bastard? Well, do I think bastard? The stuff. You know what I mean? When you get kicked in the nuts, you have to wonder whether it's.
Adam sits very far on the empathic scale, and they
a little bit,
deep, doesn't it, Adam? That's deep.
Well, you know, here's the thing, though. It's like flat Earth. Yeah, I look at it like this, man. Flat Earth is not the hill to die on, in my opinion. Like, you know, if someone's like a ball Earth or a flat Earth, like it's irrelevant. Like once the penny drops and you're over it, for me anyway. Like, because I have too many friends and family that I love dearly that will just like think that they're funny trying to talk shit, and you're just like, you know, and I'll rip up, you know, but there's also like, you know, you just wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't ruin relationships over like the shape of the Earth, man. Totalitarian dictatorships, though, that's a fucking issue. You know what I mean? But like flat Earth,
relationships
and, like,
are ruined on their own.
You can bring it up on the Arbiter show, Issa.
I can demonstrate the shape of the Earth. I can't demonstrate totalitarian regimes. Yeah,
exactly. That's Brian's overriding point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Keep with the geometry.
Yeah, it's like,
keep with the physics.
It's kind of like flat Earth, though. You know it when you see it. You know.
Well, see it is measure it in geometric terms, right? That's so. Brian throughout the show has been saying, no, I can focus on what I can show to be measurable and what I can show in physical reality. So measurement and physics, you know, these are applied in our actual world, and that's really what we're debating. That's really what we should focus on, because it won't leave a salty taste in the mouth. The paradigm shift, which you're not responsible for when you just point out things are, that might leave a salty taste in people's mouth. That I've got no control over. It's not my fault. It's the person who's lied to you about your world that's fault it's that. And if you want to go after them, that's up to you. Now, I wouldn't advise it. Move on. Be happy. Realize how wondrous the world is as a result of you not knowing, rather than knowing and having been lied to. Just recognize it and move on. Good. Okay, you know you've been lied to. Yeah, check it out. There's probably a load of other stuff that you might need to reconsider. But doesn't that make the world a lot more interesting? Yeah? No? Oh, right,
Yeah.
okay, go on. Sink into depression then. Why not? Be a miserable sod. Go and tap on NASA's door with pitchforks and torches, because that'll help your world. I won't.
I'll say it like this. We do think too big. And you know what? That's probably because of the inundation of the media, kind of giving parameters through emotional manipulation. We probably can't change the whole world, because the only thing that can really affect the whole world is the media giving the same message to the same world and having the most reach. We don't have that. But what we
Incorrect.
Okay.
So you're subject to what
Okay.
Adam was trying to point out to the other guy earlier. So that's just you in your corner being subject to the fear-based mind control that our corner is also propagandized with. So no, definitely not. What is the world? It's what you experience through your eyes on a daily basis each time you wake up. That is the world.
No, I agree. I listen to the rest of my message. Rather than focusing on your and build real community with the people around you who actually want to work with you. People might look at your community and they might mimic that. They might not. But you and your friends will be happy.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But you can't affect as many people as the machine is affecting, because you don't have the same you're not reaching the same amount of people.
There it is. You want to be in
No,
control, like
why be
machines in control.
no? Why be concerned with?
Why be concerned with what?
Why be concerned with trying to go against media corporations? Like, why would you try and play that game when what you actually can do?
I'm not. I'm not saying we should go
No,
pitchforks and
not you.
against these. Just point out the lies. So if the media claim that they can go to a second law of thermodynamics violation, sky vacuum, point out that that's a second law of thermodynamics violation. In other words, you expose the lies. You don't have to go down to the radio station as they're broadcasting it with pitchforks and torches. You just point out the lies. That's it.
Right, because that's not effective. That's my. I'm agreeing with you, because you go down to CNN headquarters with pitchforks, and guess what? That day is not televised on CNN. It's exactly what happened when hundreds of thousands of us went to do just that. When it was for Bernie Sanders or any other political thing at the time. They're not going to use their platform to help you. No one should be trying to play that game. That's a losing game.
Yes, that I totally agree with. Sorry, I missed your sentiment and started shouting through you. And when I was wrong, I misinterpreted what you meant. Absolutely agree. Yeah, the problem occurs when people who get poisoned with power see that there's power to be taken. And then they become corrupt. That's the only way I can describe it. Now, I know in this particular show we've talked about our opposing forces, let's call them, that are residing in the same portion of the pond as we are. That doesn't necessarily make them the same in this regard. That's just a minor issue in a tiny pond versus a massive pond that you're never going to get control of.
Sounds like you guys are all tuckered out.
Me? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I would say that some people, one particular guy on it, who is a claimed flat earther, but is on the opposition side to us, let's just say, that if this guy got power, he'd make sure that the likes of us are shut up good and proper. So just because someone might be a flat earther, that doesn't mean there's some kind of stable personality.
Yeah, just look at Adam.
Absolutely nothing unstable about me whatsoever.
Nothing unstable. It's just Adam's overly empathic. I mean, in that regard, we're all on the scale somewhere. Obviously, I'm slightly more narcissistic, but you know, it just means that, like with reference to Ranty, that kind of thing is going to just be a bit more irritating to Adam than your average Joe. Now, I'm not saying Adam's some sort of super empath, be taken advantage of left, right, and centre or anything. No, that's not what I'm saying. But Adam is definitely more empathetic.
That's all. No, I'll just clarify that point. That sometimes, yeah, in terms of what are you trying to achieve in the world, and how sometimes people you consider friends disappoint you, can possibly mix up when I'm in mid-sentence those two sets of emotions and how I should verbalise them. So, yeah, and he was a mate, you know. But it appears to be common in this realm, isn't it? These sorts of things. So, gotta be.
But he wasn't, Adam. That's the point. He wasn't. He gave the impression he was, but he wasn't. That's all that matters. All that matters is that he wasn't. Not whether we thought he was or someone thought he was good or bad or anything else. No, he wasn't. That's all that matters. There's nothing else that needs to be said.
To me, at the time, and even now still a bit, he is a mate. Yeah, the interaction I had with him, he was my friend. And he spent a lot of time with us. And I think mixing up sometimes that disappointment in somebody that has gone back to the ball, or you can lose sight of the bigger goal, even though it does piss you off sometimes that actually somebody, you know, because there's mix up the waste of time, and then there's the complete confusion of somebody who knows so much and how they can get there. And I suppose the annoyance is again wasting your own.
I
time.
gave you should have listened to me back then. I told you. But no, I'm the bad guy. I told you from the beginning he should be hung by a friggin' yardarm.
Yeah, I was there before. No, you weren't the original person to say that. I was. And I was convinced otherwise by Anthony Riley. And then was very supportive of Rantony.
Rantony.
Wow.
I'm sure Arwin had a bang as well. I'm sure there was many on Arwin and Ranty rant.
Most certainly.
Well,
I was
the
very
thing about
receptive.
it is this. It doesn't matter whether somebody decides that they don't believe the Earth to be a horizontal plane and they believe the Earth to be a globe. That's not the problem. It's their behavior around that decision and after that decision is the problem. I don't mind what someone decides to do. Everyone's got free will. I'm not in charge of that. But it's someone's behavior after that point. That's the problem. That tells you that person was never, ever on your side, regardless of whatever truth they ever found out. That person was only ever on their own side and will forever be.
Hey, wait a second. Nathan, you didn't say that. I did. But you hung from a yardarm. What are you trying to steal that for?
I'm not saying I said he should be hung from a yardarm. I said he wasn't to be trusted, and a lot of the stuff he spewed was complete nonsense. So essentially, Ranty and I, when I first came across him, I challenged him in many of the stupid, shitty things he was talking about when it came to chemtrails and various other conspiratorial things he was weaving in with Flat Earth. And I just challenged him on it. He didn't like it. We immediately got off onto a foot where we did not like each other. And over a very prolonged period, Anthony Riley convinced me of what a great guy he was. I'm just telling you how it was. So I was being convinced into liking Ranty. Now I consider myself a pretty good judge of character, and I didn't care about his character. All I cared about was the information being disseminated on to that audience at that time that I was a part of. And obviously, if there's an interactive chat, I'm part of the interactive chat. Now, a slight expansion on the story. He immediately didn't trust me because he sent me a video to clarify, which annoys me, here's my video on why my chemtrails claim is correct. They sent it me as a link, and I went and watched it. Now, at the time, I was watching it almost everything on 2x speed. I just didn't have enough hours in the day. Still the case. Still the case now. Watching it on double speed like I do. And I came back to him and said, no, I don't agree for this, and this reason. And he accused me of not watching the video because there wasn't enough time elapsed. I didn't immediately go, I'll watch it on 2x. I just went, no, I have watched the video. Why is he challenging me on whether or not I've watched the video? I don't get it. That was the start I went off with on Ranty, and then based my judge of character when asked by Anthony on that. And it obviously wasn't positive. But there you go, there's the full story.
And riveting as it is.
You said he should be hung from a yardarm, so really it was you that originated all suspicious that he was not a nice guy.
Yeah, right from it was really early in the game.
Can we call it?
No, I vaguely remember Brian talking about it a couple of weeks before I cottoned onto his videos, actually.
All right, you guys all tuckered out? Yeah.
I just want to say that I think a bit like Anakin Skywalker, he can still be saved, you know.
Shit.
Look, if you've got no arms, no legs, and no torso, basically just a conker.
All right, let's wrap her on up, gentlemen. Before I shift it over to you, Nathan. Watch out for the next show. It's QE Live on Tuesday. Remember that show that we're gonna do? Here, let me put up the ad for it. Let me find it. Oh, there she is. Yeah, remember that show? Where it's gonna be daggers everywhere? Stay tuned, it's coming. Hopefully, YouTube will hook me up this time and allow me to complete that mission. But it's going to be a good one, folks. Make sure you're there. That's all I have to say.
Anybody else got any last remarks before I round out this show?
I have a very off-topic question.
If you do, make them snappy.
I had Arwin first. Go ahead, Arwin.
Oh, really? I could talk about Ranty some.
No, you can't.
Okay, then I have nothing left to say.
I had Adam next.
I was only laughing at Owen there. I think somebody else chipped in. It wasn't me at the same time as Owen.
It's no Burner X.
Yeah, I had a very off-topic question from everything that's been discussed, but I thought it would be just if there was any time left over. So I kind of asked this last time about clarifying just between what you would call scientific method and troubleshooting. And I don't know, I was just kind of thinking through possible questions that I could get asked if challenged on that. And one of them that came to mind is, I do some work with, some pipes that do, get some condensation on them. And I thought, well, does that count as a naturally observed phenomena, the condensation on man-made pipes? I don't know, it was just a weird thought, and I realized I couldn't answer that. So it's probably something simple, and I'm overthinking it.
I can answer that really quickly. Condensing is definitely a natural phenomena because you can see it occurring on stuff naturally. Because you've observed it on pipes doesn't mean that doesn't extend into the entirety of the water cycle. It still does. So yeah, just because you've observed something on a man-made pipe condensing doesn't mean that you haven't observed the natural phenomena. Often on the show we have to expand on how somebody's linked something back to being a natural phenomena when it is actually a man-made phenomena versus when you spot a natural phenomena occurring around things that are man-made or happen to be man-made. There's a very distinct difference, and you can qualify it. I'm not going to expand on it because QE will get on my case. Is that enough of an answer? There you go.
What? Oh yeah, no. I that's why I said it, because you can observe condensation outside of the pipes, and it does exist as a natural thing. I just didn't know if you could. I don't know why it's so fuzzy in my head. It should be really obvious, if that makes any sense.
And you use the pipes and it condensing on them in the experiment. Is that your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so long as the phenomena can be observed to occur in nature, phrase it that way, hopefully makes it more digestible. As long as the phenomena can be observed to occur in nature, i.e., it's a natural phenomena, then the apparatus and how you apply that to occur when you vary and manipulate what you think causes it is irrelevant. The apparatus doesn't matter. All that matters is that what you are actually studying is something that occurs in nature.
It's a condensation.
The apparatus within the experiment is there to ensure that the thing you're testing is what you're testing. So it's to help refine and remove other variables. So if, for example, you were looking at the variance with regards to the moisture in the air and how contact of that surface can cause condensation, the thing that we see as morning dew, and to go and perform that in the field would be quite difficult to give it some more validity. But if you can go and set up the parameters, so you've got a cold thing and a variance to the air temperature and this humidity in the air, and does condensation occur, that would be the point of using a metal bar. If it helped isolate and therefore support the hypothesis, that would be.
No. I'm not going to allow that to stand. I'm sorry.
Go on, man.
This has got to be dealt with. No,
Just fun.
what Adam's now discussing is troubleshooting in technology. If
Okay,
it's
see, that's
applied
why.
in that manner. Again?
Sorry, I
I'm
didn't
not
interrupt
saying
you.
that. Maybe I've been misheard. The point if you've got a natural occurring phenomena, yeah, such as dew appearing, why does the dew appear? It doesn't require me to go and use grass every morning to figure that out in terms of constructing a hypothesis and constructing an experiment. Yeah, you want the things within the experiment to test your hypothesis, is what I'm saying. You don't need to necessarily use grass and the morning air. You get me?
Yeah, no, I get you now. What you're saying is the question in scientific terms is why does dew form, which is essentially, refine it more into maybe scientific language, why does it condense? Why does that condensation occur? That even by just pure language, you're refining what you'll end up doing because you've removed the grass, you've removed the morning, you're isolating it down, and in so doing, you will inevitably utilize something man-made in order to focus it down and make it more specific, isolate the variables, like you first said. Just it sounded like you were trying to figure out, well, why do the pipes have the, this occurring on them? If I relate that back to like a cooling a CPU or something, and when you're doing it with LN2 or wherever they call it, the hyper cooling, why do we end up with this condensation around? It's like, well, no, that's a sort of technology-based question. But if you're just saying, why do things condense? That's very much open to scientific inquiry. You've already refined it somewhat just by asking it in that way.
Okay, I think that may actually have been the question I was trying to ask. So you couldn't say, just because you do know condensation occurs in nature doesn't mean you can say, well, why is it condensing on these pipes? Does that make any sense?
Yes, you can absolutely ask that. It's just not open to scientific inquiry because that was a phenomena. Why does it condense on the man-made pipes? That's a technology question.
Okay, thank you.
As opposed to a natural phenomena. The condensing on the pipes themselves is definitely not natural because the pipes aren't natural. When you focus it in that way, you've repositioned the question and you've taken it outside the realms of science when you focus it in that way. Then you're not asking why does stuff condense. You're saying why does it condense on the man-made pipes? That's definitely not open to science unless you remove it in your specific manner and make it more broad, only to then hyper-focus it back on making it specific to condensation. That would be in the realms of science. That's kind of where I was trying to criticize Adam.
All right, thank you, because that was the kind of the last little bit of gray area. I don't know, for some reason that was just irritating. So thank you. Didn't mean to be dense.
My point was there's nothing wrong within the experiment. Use pipes to investigate the natural phenomena of condensation and why things condense on stuff. What are the causes of that? You can't necessarily use all of nature to give you something that's empirical enough to draw conclusions from. You have to kind of isolate things. So if within your experiment the pipe was the best thing that you could cause a temperature difference from, the most profound, which would make sense with metal, that would be valid if that's all you draw in the conclusion to, not necessarily how plants respirate or anything. You get me? You want to isolate it to that specific testing of the hypothesis. And that's the point of the experiment and why you might use a pipe.
Do you guys understand the point of be concise and end the show? Do you guys get that drift?
No, because I've got a bit of scripture coming up.
All he's got is one last supplementary question. Go ahead, Snowburner.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I'm sorry about this. So just to be clear, you could not use the condensation on man-made pipes as the only observation to say it's a natural phenomena, but you could use the pipes in an experiment to understand why dew forms. Got it?
Beautifully put.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
That was well worth it, wasn't it, QE? I'm glad he spoke.
Yes, it was. I take back everything I just said. It was a blessing.
It was. It was so concise it could be used to round out this show, and I'm going to do exactly that. With that, I will say a huge, massive, enormous thank you, first and foremost, to our patient and eloquent host, Quantum Eraser, and of course, all of the Ballbusters for making today's live show possible. Of course, another massive thank you to all of today's interactive public members who joined the Ballbusters panel, including Snowburner X with his commentary right at the end there, which was fantastic. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you for watching live, smashing the super chat, joining as a Quantum Eraser channel member, hitting the PayPal link, all of that good stuff. We will see you all in the next Ballbusters.